What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the first episode of Studs and Duds for the 2022 NFL season. This is the most comprehensive NFL player review series on the internet, doing it quarterly this year. Used to do this every week. Was a little bit overambitious. Kind of drove myself crazy. So still driving myself crazy as I record this at 1:30 in the morning, but at least I'm only doing it once a month here. Really hope you guys enjoy this series, this episode. If you do, please do hit that like button. A lot of effort goes into it, and that really does help. I expect about 10,000 plus views on this, so if we could get like 4,000 likes, I would just be curious to see what that would do for my channel. So if you enjoy this series, please do take a second to hit that like button. A lot of work went into it. Would really appreciate it. Just takes a second. But as far as this series is, if you're new or if you've seen this before and you want to recap, we are going team by team reviewing the rising and falling players from around the league. And as we do this, you are going to be seeing ratings changes here, team by team. And these ratings are actually derived from my own custom Madden roster update. We no longer do Madden content on this channel. That is why you need to go follow TFG Plays to follow our rebuilds and other Madden content. But I think it still applies to an NFL analysis channel here. Obviously, there's some things with a Madden roster that don't fully transition, but the ratings you see here, 99.9%, I would say, do reflect my own opinions of how these guys are playing in real life and what I'm seeing from the film. So that is what those ratings are all about. And let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go alphabetically, starting with the Chicago Bears. So for each team, we're going to highlight the star of the month. And for the Chicago Bears, a little bit harder to find one here. Definitely a rough start to the Bears season, although they did find a way to win a couple games. But Eddie Jackson looks relatively back. Shout out to his over-the-shoulder interception in his Week 4 game most recently. But showing off the ball skills, but also a veteran leader of that defense at this point. Seems to be in it for the rebuild for the Bears. But on the offensive side of the ball, Justin Fields is going to take a pretty significant dip here, dropping down 3 for basically every performance he's had this season. Holding on to the ball too long, inaccuracies even showing up. Case in point, his interception to Jalen Petrie against the Texans, just overthrowing over the middle of the field. And yeah, I mean, he has historically bad passing numbers right now. And while he may have some nice highlights, the Bears offense is a mess, and Justin Fields is a large part of that. But some good on the offense. Khalil Herbert stepping in for the injury of David Montgomery, a very talented young back, has made the most of those opportunities, has played well. Equinemius St. Brown has kind of taken a full-time starter role. I want to say he's actually their leading receiver. I'd have to double-check that after the big Darnell Mooney catch this week. But he looks fine. Equinemius St. Brown, I don't think he's a long-term answer or anything, but he's catching the ball when he's getting the ball thrown his way, and he's getting open and blocking well, so he's been fine. Larry Borum at right tackle, kind of taking that job from Tevin Jenkins, and Borum was one of my dudes in that 2020 draft. He's come along pretty nicely. Or was he 2021? He would have been a rookie last year, right? So yeah, 2021 draft. But yeah, he has a lot of physical tools, good foot speed, and nice strength at his core that I liked at Missouri, and seems to be coming along here in his second season. Then Braxton Jones is a rookie stepping in at left tackle. A lot of hype for him in the preseason, where he won that job pretty early on in the process, and you can see why he's capable. A nice day 3 find for the Bears, and we'll just have to wait and see if there's a more serious outcome there. But for now, he's an adequate option at left tackle and a nice find. Then on the defense, Robert Quinn going to drop down 1. Does beg the question of why this team didn't trade Robert Quinn. They could have gotten something for him, and right now he's just not getting after the quarterback at a high rate. And I expect he will have some production as the year goes on, but one of his biggest years of his career last season, and doesn't look like he's going to be repeating that with his pressure rate right now. That said, Dominique Robinson has shown some really impressive flashes. Someone that I thought would basically not see the field in year one and be really raw, but comes in and he's had some nice pass rush reps out there. Nothing crazy, but you can see the quickness there, the length, the athleticism all across the board, that when put together, he can have some nice wins, and there's certainly some upside there in that rookie fifth round pick, something like that. Then in the secondary, Jalen Johnson has missed some time, but looked really good here in, year 3 for Jalen Johnson. Just stable, full-sized corner on the outside, kind of the best they have right now, because Kyler Gordon has been off to a slow start. They spent a second-round pick on him and honestly has given up a lot of yards, about as many yards as you could possibly imagine. And he's not an uber athlete, so for a young player, you would have hoped his technique was a little bit better. It has not been, and he is getting beat over the top, giving up some big plays. That said, Kindle Vildor is also starting and looks okay. You can't tell a huge difference between Gordon and Vildor, both smaller guys, both quick. Vildor's had a couple pass breakups, but also given up a lot of yards. So both those guys, nothing special, but at least they are playing like the young guys just to kind of see what kind of development they can have. And maybe the hope is Jalen Johnson gets back and Gordon can turn things around and Vildor can continue to impress. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, and the star of the month for the Bengals is going to be T. Higgins. Has started to sort of beg the question of, is he actually their number one wide receiver? Because if you look at the target share, which he has the most targets on this team, yards, yes, production, yes, looking the best this season. And then you see week 4 where the Miami Dolphins are actually taking their only good corner in Xavier Howard in a week where they had a bunch of injuries and just shadowed T. Higgins with him. So teams are definitely respecting T. Higgins as their number one as well. I still have Jamar Chase rated a little bit higher, but man, T. Higgins has made some absolutely remarkable catches. Thinking back to that Jets game where he holds onto the ball, where he gets popped by LaMarcus Joyner. Also had a catch that ultimately wasn't ruled a catch, but everyone kind of agrees he caught it in the back corner of the end zone, elevates, comes down, toe taps both feet. A special catch by T. Higgins. And he's, like I said, been their number one wide receiver. We'll see if that lasts. Then some other pieces on the offense. Mitchell Wilcox, undrafted pickup, tight end, has made a couple plays for this team, blocking adequately. You got Jonah Williams, really just the offensive line in general taking a step back with some of these guys. Jonah Williams having one of his worst years since coming into the league. Jackson Carman has to come down as he's been basically benched and been healthy. I think he was a healthy scratch one week. For a second-round pick last year, they hoped for more from him and just has not been able to figure out the pass protection to earn the trust of this staff and Joe Burrow to put him out there. Lyle Collins as well. This is something I talked about in the Bengals deep dive where the Cowboys release him and he sits on the open market for a little bit, and then the Bengals are able to sign him for not a ton of money. It was like 3 years, $23 million, I think. Not a ton guaranteed, and it was just something that piqued my interest in that this is someone whose play in the past probably warrants more of a $15+ million contract, and he gets about half of that. It's a guy that has had a laundry list of off-the-field question marks and injuries, and coming into Cincinnati, it's not really working. He's actually been closer to a liability for them than a strength on that right tackle spot, and he's going to have to turn this thing around, or he might not see some of those dollars on the back end of his contract, because he's playing like a guy that might get cut right now. So he's going to come down too, and we'll continue to monitor his play on the field. For the defense, Sam Hubbard's having probably his best year, off to a good start there. Defending the run better than he ever has, showing a little bit more play strength that's translating to a better pressure rate as well. And Trey Hendrickson continues to just dominate seems to get 4 or 5 pressures every week, some dominant sacks in there. His ascension towards being basically a top 10 or so edge rusher continues, if not has already cemented himself as a top 10 edge rusher in this league. And then just one measly second-level defender, Akeem Davis-Gaither, a rotational linebacker who comes in on dime packages, but a nice pass breakup. I want to say against the Dolphins. If that wasn't the Dolphins, it was week 3. But he has rotated in, getting about 10 snaps a game in that rotational role. And it's a good role for him because he's not a full 3-down linebacker, or at least he hasn't shown to be that. Maybe he can when Jermaine Pratt is out of here. His contract is up after this year, but playing well. Akeem Davis-Gaither, a 3rd-round pick out of App State, I believe, several years ago. Now we have the Buffalo Bills. Been a little bit of a polarizing season, actually, when you look back on it, because the first 2 weeks were so incredible. The last 2 weeks, they've slowed down in some regards. So a lot of players to talk about here. But their star of the month is undoubtedly going to be Josh Allen, who to me has really put himself into the tier 1 of NFL quarterbacks. Although the last couple weeks has reminded us a little bit of some of those Josh Allen tendencies where he will put the ball in harm's way. Beyond that, this guy is just indefensible. He just keeps coming too. Like, even if he does make mistakes, he doesn't really let them get to him. He makes plays with his legs, whether he runs or throws the ball on the run. He's so difficult to sack because he senses pressure well, and even if you can get to him, he's so big and so explosive and so good at breaking sacks and getting out of the pocket. So all of that combined with increased processing and accuracy, he is very much in the QB1 conversation, and a +2 to his overall rating, going to reflect that here, the star of the month for the Bills. And then on the offense, James Cook is going to come down because he's just not meeting those expectations that he was going to step in and get a heavy workload and provide a spark for this offense. We did see it week 3. They went to him in the passing game, and he looked like he could handle it, but then they get away from it week 4 against the Ravens. So I still think the potential is there for him to be a very good 3rd down back. But that said, I didn't love what he brought to the table as a running back. They clearly do not either. And it does kind of look bad that they drafted him in the 2nd round right now, because you draft a running back in the 2nd round, you kind of hope he's going to be an early impact, and he really has not been. Still early in the season, though, but I do think he's got to come down because he was rated for some of those expectations. Then we got Reggie Gilliam. Reggie, if you're watching, what's up, dude? I know Reggie uses the roster. He's a fan of the channel, so Reggie is playing well out there, getting involved in the receiving game as well, making some nice blocks, and kind of making a name for being one of the better utility fullbacks in the league right now. So Reggie Gilliam going up, some fullback love on the channel here. And then Jamison Crowder, a good start to his Bills campaign, but has completely tapered off and hasn't really been a functional weapon for them in the last couple weeks. Is going to come down just 1. Still like the signing. Still think he's a nice 4th piece to have, but maybe rated just a touch high there at 77. Isaiah McKenzie, on the other hand, is going to come up 1, and he just continues to make plays, and it feels like it's in a different way, a different route, a different type of way to win every single week. Just a nicely utilized gadget weapon there. Isaiah McKenzie, more often than not, catches the ball when it's thrown his way. Solid route runner and a really explosive athlete that they'll line up at running back and just, again, find creative ways to get him involved. We are going to have some reductions to this offensive line. Roger Saffold was a big signing for this team. They were hoping that this would be an upgrade at left guard, and so far I would say it has not been. The pass protection from Roger Saffold at his age, 33 years old, has not been good at all. And really, this offensive line in general showed some red flags in the first couple of weeks, and these last 2 weeks, I think, are a big reason why the offense has stalled a little bit. And it's the guard play is a big part of that. Ryan Bates on the other side, younger player that they gave a contract extension to, right? And they were hoping that he would not just step in, but continue to develop as a young player, and he's going backwards. So the guard play is a problem right now in Buffalo. Both those guys are going to go down 2. Then we look on the defensive side of the ball where things have been really nice for the Bills. This to me feels like the year that your defensive head coach is flourishing and you're getting a bunch of guys to really step up, which is what you want when you have a defensive-minded coach after you lose a Brian Daboll, for example. So, yeah, these guys all just kind of make sense within the scheme, and they really are playing well together. But Carlos Basham has basically been a rotational pass rusher, but has been an incredibly efficient rusher. And with some injuries to the interior of the defensive line, they've needed guys like Basham and Rousseau here to step inside and get after the quarterback from 3-tech. And Basham has been one of those guys able to do that. So a second-round pick last year, it has been effective when used, along with Gregory Rousseau, who's been more of the starter here. The first-round pick from last year was one of my guys. Not a lot of people liked Gregory Rousseau. I really believed in him. I believed in the length and the power that he had. And my God, is it coming together. He has just had some dominant wins, several sacks this season, and definitely looks like he's trending up to the point where he can not just be a nice compliment to Von Miller this year, but maybe ascend to being this team's number 1 rusher down the road when inevitably Von Miller cannot be that guy for them anymore. Then Jordan Phillips, really about the first couple weeks here, but he comes over from, I almost said Carolina, but it's Arizona. I almost said Carizona. Anyway, Jordan Phillips, just some dominant pass rush wins in the first couple weeks. I think he then got hurt, so his season was slowed down there, but looked really athletic and quick, frankly, not just a big pile driver, maybe like I used to think he was, but wins with a spin move in week 2. So just kind of a situational pass rusher. Still has no idea what he's doing against the run, but as long as he's in a situation like this where he can just get after the quarterback, you love it. Both these linebackers are going to go up. Really feeling the presence of Tremaine Edmonds this year. Former first-round pick. This dude's still only like 23, 24 years old, even though he's in his 4th year. A true freak athlete. Feels like he's just getting better depth in coverage and starting to get a better feel for that middle-of-the-field zone type of stuff that they love to run with him. And just from a run defense perspective, he seems to be making more plays, so he's trending up. Not that he's been bad, but someone with so much upside, a former first-round pick that was like a top 12 pick, I think. You want to see him get on this path towards being a top 5, top 10 linebacker, and I think he's showing that he could potentially get there. Matt Milano, on the other hand, is playing great this year. Probably his best year in coverage, just taking away guys over the middle of the field, but also playing with a lot more confidence against the run. Someone that is a little bit smaller, but he hasn't played like it this year. He's been tackling, he's been thumping. Started to show that a little bit last year, but it's good to see that carry over to 2022. So Matt Milano is going to go up to 81 to an 83. And then these young corners, Christian Benford winning that starting job over first-round pick Kaiir Elam, and just impressing out the gate, really out of Villanova, I think it is. Kind of just a lengthy, smart, physical corner. And he ended up getting hurt these last couple weeks, which slowed down his ascension. But if this Bills team found something in Christian Benford to be a long-term starter for them in the, I can't remember if it was 6th or 7th round, if they found that, that's just insanity for an already pretty stacked defense. Then Dane Jackson, another guy that has been injured. He had a kind of a scary injury, right? A neck injury. Gets taken off in an ambulance, so hopefully he's doing okay, but just continues to show that he's a really smart corner, and the more he understands this defense, the more stable he's been at corner. So they have another piece in Dane Jackson there. Our next team is the Denver Broncos. Do we have to talk about this team? I guess we do. Coming real fresh off of that ugly Thursday night stinker by this team. And, you know, there's some good to talk about on this defense, but mostly for the offense, it's been awful. But let's start with the star of the month for the Broncos, Patrick Surtain, showing that potential, showing why, for me, he was the best corner in that draft. And hey, J.C. Horn's been pretty good too, so I don't want to be too hard on J.C., but Patrick Surtain has been phenomenal, looking like a top 5 corner in the NFL this season. Really handled Davante Adams well. The only catches he gave up were just underneath top-down coverages where he's playing off, and then a couple of really perfectly timed back shoulders that there's nothing he can do about. But it wasn't just that matchup where he handled Davante Adams well and had a couple nice pass breakups in that matchup. But he's just been great all season long. Just from the telecast, looked like he had another good game against the Colts. So Patrick Surtain up 3, ascending towards being, one of the better corners in the entire NFL. So he's been the best thing I think the Broncos have had going for them, as they need something positive to take away with how Russell Wilson is playing. And last year it was like, well, bad thumb, bad coach, messy situation. He just, is in a bad spot. He'll be better, right? With the inconsistency that Russell Wilson has shown really over the last couple of years. But there's no excuses here at this point in Denver. I know he's playing in a new system, quote unquote. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett's offense is very similar to what they had in Seattle. And shit, we're seeing Seattle's offense run pretty dang well with Geno Smith right now. So that's not a good look for Russell Wilson either. It's just been a disaster. He's been bad. He's been inaccurate at times. He's made bad decisions at times. I mean, he made a couple of throws in this Colts game tonight. 3 that just come to my mind right now. Honestly, 4. Like, he was just so bad against the Colts. He leads Jerry Jeudy upfield when he has Jerry Jeudy wide open on a deep cross early in the game. He's late on the first interception at Gilmore. He's late on the 4th down attempt for the win, where he also missed KJ Hamler wide open on that play. He also just chucked a ball up to get intercepted late in this game, where if they kick a field goal, they probably just win that game. And then it's 3rd down and long, and he's just taking checkdowns when Russell Wilson is supposed to be known for improvising in those situations. It's been horrible. And honestly, 84 overall right now is not accurate to how he's playing. He's been way worse than that. That's still giving him a lot of benefit of the doubt based on his career resume. And if he doesn't start playing better, he's going to continue to drop. And this contract, this trade is going to continue to look worse and worse and worse. It's been all ugly with Russell Wilson. Melvin Gordon's going to come down basically for the fumbles alone. I mean, you can't put the ball on the turf. It's that simple. That's why Mike Boone is getting an opportunity here. His explosiveness is shining a little bit in this offense. At least it did against the Colts late in that game. Albert O has been disappointing. You would think within this offense, within this scheme, he would make sense as a nice piece. Russ hasn't always used his tight ends, especially within structure, so could be a little bit of that, but hasn't been able to hold on to the ball and really become a part of this passing game at all. So he's going to come down. Some of these linemen are playing pretty well, though. Cam Fleming at right tackle, a veteran, has been just dominating guys in the run game. Not so much in pass pro, but he has been moving people when they do run the ball. And Lloyd Cushenberry just continues to be locked down pass pro at center, so he's going to continue to climb. As for the defense, Randy Gregory, a nice signing, continues basically what he was showing last year for Denver. And one of the more efficient pass rushers in the NFL this season, unfortunately, is injured. Missed that game against the Colts. Would have loved to see what he could do against that offensive line. But he looks like a nice signing for Denver, for a defense that overall has been really good for them, other than that Raiders game. Bradley Chubb has been good as well, having one of his better seasons. He just looks healthy and like a leader of this defense. He's not a dominant specimen or anything, but he's the best they got right now as Randy Gregory is out, or at least we think so, because Baron Browning stepped right in for Randy Gregory and didn't really miss a beat And it makes sense. He's that same kind of ultra explosive piece off the edge. Obviously not as refined as Randy Gregory, and he doesn't have the ability that Randy Gregory has to plant those arms and drive a bull rush, but you can see his just instincts to get after the quarterback, to utilize his get off and bend and just overall athleticism. And he played linebacker for them as a rookie, looked okay there, but kind of a little Micah Parsons-esque move by the Broncos defense. He's not Micah Parsons. Let's not go crazy here, but just in the same sense of let's just take the freak athlete and put him on the edge and see what he can do. And right now they look right for that. So really big game. Excited to see kind of what his grade and pressures and everything comes out for that performance against the Colts. But he just looks the part out there. So a nice move by Ejiro Evero, their defensive coordinator, that I think is doing a really good job. And then Caden Stearns as well. Another big game. That's recency coming off that Colts performance where he has, a pick and a pass breakup in this one. So Caden Stearns, +1, young player out of Texas. They need some youth to step up in that safety group because Justin Simmons is hurt. You got, Anthony Harris they just picked up. They have Kareem Jackson is still on this team. They need someone like Caden Stearns to reach their potential. And, he hasn't been perfect, but certainly showing up on the film. All right, next up we have the Cleveland Browns. The star of the month for them is going to be Nick Chubb. I mean, he's the identity of the team right now. He's been great. Quite clearly, I would say he's been the best running back in the NFL for the first month of the season. I don't think that's controversial to say, and it's pretty straightforward. I don't think we even really need to talk about it. Jacoby Brissett's been pretty impressive. His last week probably would have earned him a -1, I would say. Like, he was probably poised for a +3 until he looked like a backup against the Falcons. So he's just going to go up to 67 to a 69. He's just looking like a really solid kind of borderline starter backup type. Strong arm, decent decision maker, decent accuracy, just not enough it traits or high-level traits for a quarterback to be anything more, but doing a valiant job to keep this team's season afloat. I will say Kareem Hunt looks about as unimpressive as he has in his career. I think we've seen enough to say that maybe he's just not all the way in this year. I don't know. He's just not breaking tackles at the same clip that he always has. That's been his MO throughout his career. He's always been one of the hardest guys to tackle in the NFL, and not so much this year. He's not the most explosive back in the league, so if he loses that trait, he's just kind of a guy back there. I expect him to have brighter days ahead. He's not old or anything, but he's not playing up to that 86 grade that we had on him. Then on the O-line, some of these sort of backups that, or at least guys that were backups as they looked at it coming into the year, James Hudson, Ethan Pocic, have been moving guys in the run game, have been very solid. I like James Hudson. He's kind of a developmental tackle, but they're definitely happy to see him take steps up in year 2 and someone they can count on at least as swing depth and maybe a tackle of the future because Jack Conklin just can't stay healthy, it feels like. Then on the defensive side of the ball, not a whole lot going, honestly. This defense has underperformed, in my opinion. Sion Taki is going to get a little bit of respect. He's a rotational linebacker that continues to kind of do that same thing every year where he's just an overhang defender and just kind of covers the flat and protects the outside on certain packages and is a secure player. So he's been fine in that role. Nothing special, though. Denzel Ward's going to come down. He's blowing some coverages. This is a zone-heavy system that is kind of failing to maximize what he can do. But you can tell he doesn't anticipate routes. He's not a great zone corner, and he's just not been that elite corner that he's capable of being this season. Both the special teamers going to go up a little bit. Cade York, the rookie kicker, looks good. And Cody Bojorquez continues to ascend towards kind of top punter status in the NFL, or at least, top echelon. Let's move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The star of the month for them is going to be Robert Hainsey. Was really a question mark of how he was going to look coming in. Didn't start as a rookie, was a third-round pick, but someone that they trusted to step up when they did lose. their center Jensen for the year, and they were right to trust him. He looks really solid. Still a small sample size, but no reason to believe he won't continue to ascend towards being a reliable starting level center there. Certainly has played at that level so far through a month. Some guys are going to drop on this offense, so Leonard Fournette, just kind of like we said about Kareem Hunt, just hasn't been bad, but hasn't been great, hasn't been breaking a lot of tackles or having a lot of explosive runs. Big year last year, just isn't living up to it, so he's going to come down. Jalen Darden does, I think, have to come down, just unable to get out there and contribute despite all of these receiver injuries. They have to bring in basically a Cole Beasley off the street who retires a week later because they can't trust a Jalen Darden, which is just really unfortunate because he's so physically talented. I loved him at North Texas, but just obviously Tom Brady doesn't trust him. He's not able to stay in the right place. You see the play where they're just running a jet sweep with him. And both Leonard Fournette and Tom Brady are barking at him for 10 seconds as they're trying to motion him over for the jet sweep. So he just doesn't know the offense. I think it's safe to say at this point that there is a little bit of off-the-field inability with Jalen Darden, so he's going to come down until he can get on the field and put the physical talent to pair with the mental talent, really. Co Kieft going to come up. Fellow Minnesota Gopher makes a huge catch against the Chiefs, but he's been playing a little bit of a role here as a 7th-round pick. Looks fine. Luke, and then some of these other pieces on the O-line are going to come down, actually, not stepping up like Robert Hainsey is. Luke Goedeke out of Central Michigan, a 2nd-round pick. It's been a tough transition over to left guard. This guy was a right tackle and does seem to be struggling with a little bit of everything here. A new position, obviously a big talent gap going from Central Michigan to the NFL, changing sides, going from the right side to the left side. So he's been a liability in pass protection, and you don't always notice it because Tom Brady gets the ball out so quickly, but he gets beat pretty damn easily, and he's got to step it up or they're going to continue to have O-line issues there. Shaq Mason as well. You know, Belichick, I will say, is known for getting rid of guys before they kind of plummet. Not like they even got anything for Shaq Mason, but he hasn't played up to that Pro Bowl level that he has in years past. The run game has really struggled, and he hasn't been a great pass protector either. I still think he's a good player, and they're happy to have him, but he hasn't lived up to that 85 for sure. And then on the defensive side of the ball, this defense continues to play pretty well outside of running into Patrick Mahomes on Sunday Night Football. But Jamel Dean's been incredible. He certainly is playing for that big contract, and I think he's going to get it. I don't know if it's going to be from this team or someone else, but pretty safe to say at this point he's their best corner. And just the explosiveness, the ball skills, he's a big dude. You can do anything with him. And, yeah, he's ascending towards being a top 10-ish corner in the NFL, in my opinion. Mike Edwards is going to go up as well. He was, I don't want to say a question mark, but a moving piece for this secondary. He's been a third safety for them. They let Whitehead go to the Jets, and Edwards has stepped in as a full-time starter and honestly has outplayed Jordan Whitehead this season. And, yeah, he's been really nice. He's made some plays on the ball, and I think he's going to continue to climb this year as well. Then both of their special teamers as well have been really good this year. Ryan Suckup and Jake Camarda are going to come up. The Arizona Cardinals, we do have some players to talk about, believe it or not, even though this has been such an uninspiring football team. So the star of the month is going to be Zach Allen. Really good to see this. I love Zach Allen. I felt like he landed in a tough scheme fit for him. This is a guy that I thought could have been a first rounder just because he was such a technically refined edge rusher and a really just high-end work ethic guy that produced at Boston College. But Arizona takes him and basically asks him to play defensive tackle, even though he was a 5-tech defensive end edge guy in college. So the transition has not been easy for him. To me, it does look like he has really put on the weight. He has that kind of fat body defensive tackle build now that he did not enter the league with. And it does seem to be translating now to actual good play. He's defending the run much better. His pass rush efficiency has been really good. Now, he hasn't gone up against the best offensive lines in the league, but I do feel pretty good saying that he's a starting caliber player right now and just might continue to climb. He's been like a lone bright spot for this defense. For the offense, they have had some guys step up. It hasn't been all ugly. Eno Benjamin definitely looks good when they go to him. It's been a lot of James Conner, but Eno Benjamin has made some guys miss and had some nice runs out there, a guy that had some camp hype. Then Marquise Brown. Honestly, I don't mind this trade. I didn't mind it when it happened. A lot of people were very critical of it. I think you got to be aggressive to go get a wide receiver. AJ Green, obviously dropping this week, is pretty washed up. They may have seen the DeAndre Hopkins suspension coming. I would hate to see what this offense would look like without Marquise Brown, who's making some game-changing catches down the sideline this year and deserves to go up for it. And he's going to get a large chunk of money sometime soon. Another receiver, Greg Dortch, stepping up. He's basically disappearing now that Rondale Moore has filled into that position of that undersized gadget receiver. But Greg Dortch, going back to his time at college, was a full-time X wide receiver that ran the full route tree and did a lot of stuff at, Georgia Southern, I believe. Or was he the Wake Forest guy? There's the other guy that's on Seattle that was kind of similar. But anyway, a skilled receiver that's just small, who, when given the opportunities here for Arizona, has played well. DJ Humphries is off to a good start this year as well. He might just be kind of a bipolar tackle year to year after a down year. Last year was really good in the COVID year, but looks like the COVID year version of DJ Humphries this year, protecting Kyler's blind side. Will Hernandez as well has played really well. This run game hasn't been terrible, and he's been pretty good holding up in pass pro as well. Former second-round pick for the Giants that had a hot start to his career and then tapered off. Looks to have rekindled his career and seems to be a nice pickup for Arizona. Will Hernandez is not someone you should be completely writing off, given his draft pedigree and physical talent and the fact that his worst play came on a New York Giants team that they couldn't seem to get anybody to play well. So good to see Will Hernandez filling in at right guard, a spot that's been a kind of a turnstile for the Cardinals for a few years now. They may have found their guy in Will Hernandez. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Marcus Golden going to come down one. He just has not been able to sustain his ability to get after the quarterback. He's basically been a non-factor for them, so I think we need to lower him one. Isaiah Simmons has got to come down. Yes, he forced that fumble, the game-winning fumble against the Raiders, but has been flushed into a situational role. He's kind of in the doghouse a little bit. He's been nowhere to be found against the run. Just has not taken that step up that they were hoping he would as a full three-down player, and they find him in kind of a weird position on this defense where they don't really know how to use him and identify his skill set. So Simmons has been, I don't want to say a bust, but certainly a disappointment as a top 10 pick and someone that some people viewed as a blue chip prospect in that draft. But he's been kind of a tweener, positionless player in the NFL. Staying on the West Coast, but over to the AFC with the Chargers. Their star of the month was tough, but I am going to go with Gerald Everett, who's been a must-have explosive option for that passing game. You got Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen's been hurt, obviously, but and I guess Keenan Allen's injury is a big reason I'm going to say this, but they need a mismatch problem. Mike Williams is not that, right? He's a go-get-it, big body ball winner on the outside. But Gerald Everett's been a really tough cover. He's been really separating over the middle of the field. He's earned Herbert's trust very quickly inside of this offense, and he's been really good. And their offense would not look the same without him. So I think he's been the most impactful guy going up here, our choice for the star of the month. But starting on the offensive side of the ball, other than that, we got Sony Michel coming down to, gets cut by the Dolphins, gets brought into the Chargers here, and just not producing at a high rate. So he's got to come down. Was pretty good for the Rams last year. Doesn't look like the same guy so far. Their rookie fullback, Xander Horvath, has made some plays for this offense. He's been a decent blocker and an okay playmaker, so got to give him some love. DeAndre Carter has been really their second best wide receiver with Keenan Allen going down. Just kind of a balanced route runner, decent hands, good after the catch. Was pretty good in Washington and has been pretty good for the Chargers. More of the same here. Then on the offensive line, some movement. You got Matt Filer coming down too. He's actually been pretty rough for them, and I could have probably dropped him more, but someone that has had a pretty stable career. I think he'll settle down and be okay there, but you're definitely worried about how Matt Filer's playing at left guard. You had some Chargers fans calling for him to get benched a couple weeks ago, and with Jamari Sawyer playing this well at left tackle, although it's not like Rashawn Slater. It's not like he's coming back this year, but maybe Sawyer looks like a guy that could be a left guard of the future or a right tackle of the future. Just 1 week here. He gets the start week 4 against the Texans, but basically perfect. Didn't give up a pressure, dominated every single rep, and it's just one game, but someone that many viewed as a pretty big steal in the 6th round, and I had a 3rd to a 4th rounder on him. I thought he was definitely a good value, and drawing some comparisons to Isaiah Wynn out of Georgia, 6'3" tackle for the Patriots. I could definitely see him being Isaiah Wynn, which would be a huge find and a potentially season-saving draft pick for the LA Chargers there. Definitely a pivot point for the rest of their season there. Will Clapp is going to go up as well. Corey Linsley was banged up. Clapp stepped in at center and held up okay. Then we flip over to the defense, a defense that's been, I guess, hit or miss. The interior defensive line has still not been great. Sebastian Joseph Day, they gave him a lot of money to defend the run, and he just hasn't done it all that well. So he's going to come down one, hasn't lived up to his hopes, being a decent free agent signing there. Morgan Fox has been a nice little addition for them. He's kind of a 3rd down, 4-eye, 3-technique interior rusher. He's been getting after the quarterback pretty well, so he's going to go up 1. And then J.C. Jackson, talk about disappointing free agent signings. Still plenty of time to turn this thing around, but there was some talk about J.C. Jackson. How is he going to fit moving from a really man-heavy defense in New England over to a totally zone-heavy defense for the Chargers? And he's definitely looked uncomfortable. He just basically has been a bad corner that hasn't even really made any plays yet. I like J.C. Jackson, and I hope he can get this season off on the right, get the season going on the right track. But right now, it is off on the wrong track. Unlike Asante Samuel, who's been all around the football, year 2 looks good for Asante Samuel. Samuel is a very heady zone corner. Actually looks like the better of the two between him and J.C. Jackson right now. He is a bit of a risk taker. He will get beat. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the able to ride guys' hip pockets and play like super tight coverage or anything like that all the time. So he will give up some yards, but he's in position a lot of times and an excellent number 2 corner, maybe number 1 corner for the Chargers. And then J.K. Scott, they got a new punter there, kicking the ball well. Alabama Crimson Tide there, J.K. Scott, plus 372 to a 75. Next up, the Kansas City Chiefs. The star of the month for me is going to be L'Jarius Sneed. We've talked about several ascending corners trying to make a name for, or make a case rather, for being a top 10 corner in the NFL, and I think L'Jarius Sneed is also very much on that trajectory. He's been awesome. His tape has been so good, but with Charvarius Ward gone now, Sneed has really needed to be their clear-cut number 1 corner, and he has answered the call, and they use him in a lot of different ways too. He can play in the slot, he can play outside, he can shadow any receiver because he's got speed and quickness and height, so he can do that. They blitz him where he gets home immediately on those cat blitzes, so yeah, he's been awesome. But let's talk about the offense a little bit. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Isaiah Pacheco, both these guys going to get a little bit of love. Pacheco is the flashy new toy that everybody likes to talk about, and he surely has looked good. He looks explosive, and this Chiefs team just opens up a lot of open run lanes for these guys. They get too high pretty much every single snap, so you get light boxes, and then they have these maulers up in the trenches, so it's a great spot for an Isaiah Pacheco, who's a freak athlete, who, in my opinion, at Rutgers had no creativity as a runner and no vision. And there's been flashes of those flaws, but the explosiveness is definitely a nice counterpunch to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who just doesn't have the juice and the size of an Isaiah Pacheco. But Edwards-Helaire has definitely made the most of it. He has been really productive. He's been making guys miss. He's had some explosive runs. Both Helaire and Pacheco averaging the same yards per carry right now. Then we got Michael Burton having his best year as a blocking fullback for this team. He's going to get a big boost, +6. Justin Watson's going to get just a little bit of respect for that touchdown he had. I can't even remember. Who did he beat? Post route, week 2 against, forget it. He had a beautiful post route, double move, beat a good player, got a touchdown off of it. He's like their 5th wide receiver, so the opportunities aren't all there. But he's been a fun piece for them. Jody Fortson, another fun piece for the Chiefs. Another backup that doesn't get a lot of opportunities, but when they go his way, he makes plays. He's an undersized kind of hybrid tight end receiver, big slot type that they just scheme him open, and he's kind of a developmental project that I think they dream of him maybe being a Travis Kelce replacement someday. He definitely is an athletic guy that who knows. Orlando Brown's going to come down. He is not having the big year he needed in a contract year to get that big contract he wants. I mean, he's playing like a $6 million tackle this year. He's been getting beat around the edge. He's been their worst offensive lineman this year, in my opinion, and that includes Andrew Wiley on the right tackle spot. Creed Humphrey just continues to dominate. Just the more and more he does it as a year 2 center, the closer and closer he's going to get to being my highest rated center out there. So really nothing else to say there. He's been dominant since he came into the league and continues to do so. Flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, Chris Jones is having a career year so far. He has slowed down a little bit looking at last week, but I do think they kind of messed with his career trajectory just a little bit. Kind of gave him a road bump when they tried to move him to edge, and then he had to play about 10 pounds lighter than he's more comfortable with. Sticking back to defensive tackle full offseason to get ready to play it. I mean, Chris Jones is reminding us that he is the second best interior rusher in this league, and honestly, he's gone basically snap for snap with Aaron Donald on a pressure basis this year. So he's just borderline unblockable, and he's been a monster for the Chiefs. You know who hasn't been a monster, though, is Derek Nadi, the Florida State product. What is it, year 4 for him? Is this a contract year for him? I think it is. Came into the league and was a really good run defender, but last year was an anomaly, took a huge step back, and he has continued to just basically get moved around, not get off blocks, be a non-factor in the runs, so he is fading away for this Chiefs team. Darius Harris is a no-name linebacker that's had to play with the Willie Gay suspension, and he's been okay. That's all I got on that. Jalen Watson, a day 3 pick for the Chiefs here, and he has earned some opportunities here. He's gotten some opportunities due to some injuries as well, and he's met the call. A little grabby, not a perfect player, but you could do a hell of a lot worse for a day 3 rookie. And he's gotten he's gotten his hands on some balls and made some plays. So he's been a nice rookie for the Chiefs at corner. And then the punter, Tommy Townsend, has been booming balls. Looks really good. So he's going to go up. The special teams love continues. All right. At least we get the Colts and the Broncos out of the way soon in this video because, God, that Thursday night game was ugly. And they do have a star of the month that we get to highlight here, Stephon Gilmore. He looks back. I mean, he never really left, honestly. The Panthers just for some reason were afraid to use him after they traded for him. Just more coaching blunders by the Panthers. And the Colts watched his tape, and they're like, I mean, he still looks like Stephon Gilmore to us. They bring him in on kind of a value contract, and he's been awesome for the Colts. And he was good before the Broncos game, and I think he's going to have a really high grade from that game, and kind of projecting forward to give him some love on that Week 5 performance as well. So at least they have that, because Matt Ryan has been a complete flop here. He has been genuinely one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL this season, and that was some of the worst quarterbacking you'll see on Thursday Night Football. I mean, just stupid mistakes, inaccurate throws. It's been the inability to extend plays that's really hurting him. And, you know, he's at a point in his career where he needs a perfect surrounding. He needs an offensive line that's going to block for him. He needs receivers that are getting open on time. And unfortunately, he doesn't really have that here. So there's a world where he looks a little bit better than he has right now, but it's kind of self-imploding here, where he's making a bad situation even worse. So he's going to have a dramatic fall. He's been just hard to watch. Like, it looks like he should have just retired instead of trying to get a ring. And he's going to drop from an 81 to a 74. And honestly, I just had him ranked too high. I thought he was going to look pretty good coming in here, and he's looked horrible. Jonathan Taylor's also going to come down. You know, he's not free of blame. He just hasn't had the same explosiveness. Obviously, the run blocking hasn't been quite as good as it's been in years past, but given the expectations that he was going to look like the best running back in the NFL in year 3 here, he has not been that. It's not the end of the world. He's going from a 97 to a 96. He's now tied with Derrick Henry for my highest rated running back in the NFL. But that gap, I think, is closing between Taylor, Henry, and Nick Chubb based on how we viewed those guys last year. Nyheim Hines is also going to come down. It's not entirely his fault. I feel like they're just not doing a lot of creative ways to get him the football. But when he has touched the ball, he hasn't looked ultra explosive or anything. So he's going to come down. Deion Jackson's going to come up. He looked awesome against the Broncos. Really athletic running back coming out of Duke. And Duke's offensive line was a train wreck when Deion Jackson was there. So he basically gets himself drafted because of a crazy impressive combine. And getting to learn from these backs, Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, for a year. He gets an opportunity in this Thursday night game with Nyheim Hines out and Jonathan Taylor out. And he looked really explosive, and excited to maybe see a little bit more Deion Jackson. It's not like he's ever going to be a starter here with Taylor and Hines above him, but maybe a trade piece for the Colts for an explosive young back in Deion Jackson. These receivers are going to go up. So Alec Pierce is going to get a +2 here. Slow week 1, but ever since then he's been awesome. He's been Matt Ryan's go-to guy, and honestly, he's kind of outplayed Michael Pittman. He's been the guy that they can count on to come down with those tough third down situations. Really back-to-back weeks, he's done that for this team. He looks the part. I think he's going to continue to climb this year. Ashton Dulin as well has just been a nice role player for this team and made a lot of plays for them and deserves to go up for it. Mo Alley-Cox has been a reliable tight end for Matt Ryan. He's just been a steady pair of hands. Has been a nice red zone target, a nice third down target in a situation where Matt Ryan has definitely needed a guy to trust, and he's used that big frame well to come down with some nice catches this year, as has Jelani Woods. Oftentimes you can't even tell a huge difference between these two guys. Both really big. Jelani Woods is even bigger. But with Woods, you know he's a freak. 6'7", ran a 4.59, played in a anemic passing game at Virginia Tech Virginia, was it? Yeah, Virginia. And it was really just a matter of him not being a complete tree to the point where can he run a route without tripping over himself, and can he use that size to body out defenders? And he's doing both of those things really well. Obviously, in a rotation here, because not listed here is the other tight end. Kylan Granson's looked good too. I think I have him rated appropriately as a 70 right now, but thought about raising him as well. Mo Alley-Cox is good, so the opportunity is not there, but every time they throw the ball his way, he looks like a potential star tight end. My high-end pro comp for Jelani Woods was Martellus Bennett, and he kind of looks like it right now. So even though he's only played like 50 snaps, he's going up 2 for him. That said, his third-round brother in Bernard Raymond has not looked as good, unable to win that left tackle spot from Matt Pryor. And then this week with some injuries, they shuffled the line around and put him out there against the Broncos, and they ate his lunch. Some holding calls, some false starts, just did not look ready. This is a guy that has not been playing football for all that long, and his fall to the third round was a bit of a surprise. Now not winning that tackle job over a Matt Pryor, who's also going down this week, who has been far from perfect for the Colts. Yeah, I mean, it just hasn't been good all around for Bernhard Raimann. Quentin Nelson's going to come down 4, you guys. I kind of flirted with this idea last year and in Studs and Duds where I'm like, look, this Quentin Nelson is awesome. I love Quentin Nelson, and he's still a 90. Like, I'm not saying he's bad, but he had some ugly losses on tape in pass protection last year. He has been getting beat in pass protection this year. He is more of a Twitter love child than he is the best guard in the NFL. He is great. I love Quentin Nelson, but he's not even in the conversation at this point for the best guard in the NFL. I think he's been passed up by several players at this point, and he doesn't have injuries to blame for getting beat in pass pro this year. He's just not been great, so he's going to come down. Danny Pinter is going to come down. They were really counting on him to continue to grow. Looked good when they called his number last year due to some injuries, but getting that starting right guard job after they let Mark Lewinsky go has not looked good. He's been getting worked in pass protection. He hasn't been moving people in the run game either like he did last year, so that's been kind of a train wreck at right guard. Matt Pryor, I would say, has been fine, but just... yeah, I just think the 71 was a touch high is basically all. He hasn't been horrible, but he has had some rough losses as well, so he's going to come down as well. The whole O-line has been an overwhelming disappointment for the Colts. Then for the defense, Yannick Ngakoue, looks like it's a down Yannick year, or at least it's off to a slow start. He's going to drop down 2. He's not been horrible, but certainly hasn't been a difference maker for them. It's kind of been the story of Yannick's career, is just kind of some ebbs and flows. These linebackers look good. Honestly, with Darius Leonard out, Bobby Okereke has really stepped up. He's having his best year as a tackler and as a run defender, and they've needed him to do that with Darius Leonard out. So that's one of the bright spots on this defense. EJ Speed as well has gotten some opportunities due to the injuries there, and he's looked the part. He's only playing a dozen snaps every week, but has been tackling well, has been getting to the football. Kenny Moore is going to come down. It's a new system here, and I think they're having him run a little bit more run and chase than he did in Eberflus's system, and that's just not Kenny Moore's game. He's better with his eyes on the quarterback, playing in those zones, and the cover 3 heavy stuff here as I think hurt his coverage ability a little bit. He's not some phenomenal athlete, and he is only 5'9". So I still like Kenny Moore, but he has not been the best slot corner in the NFL like he was last year. Just got to come down a little bit. And then Brandon Faison was, I guess, a bit of a frustrating start decision by the Colts because we all love Isaiah Rodgers, and Isaiah Rodgers has played well in limited opportunities too, but you can see what they liked about Faison and coming over, knowing the system from Gus Bradley. This is an athletically talented corner that was a bit of a project coming into the league. So if he's putting together the technique, a veteran that is establishing that comfort within the team, like, there's no reason he can't continue to play at a starting caliber level and make Gus Bradley look right for starting him. So he's been a pleasant surprise. And then the kicker they brought in for Rigoberto Sanchez, who they released, Chase McLaughlin, has been pretty good. Obviously, went 4 for 4 in that Thursday night game as well. Before we get to our next team, I just wanted to remind you guys that the new official store of That Franchise Guy is open for business. I've got the new trucker hat on for this one. It's thatfranchisestore.com. We got a bunch of fun offerings. We'll have limited edition items coming at you soon as well. So go check it out, thatfranchisestore.com. And you can rep the brand, you can support the brand. And yeah, let's get back to the video. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys. Their star of the month is Micah Parsons. Not going to be a big surprise there for sure. I mean, he's been, I would say, second in Defensive Player of the Year after what Nick Bosa has been doing. But God, he's a freaking monster, Micah Parsons. He's that agent of chaos, and he's been well covered. I feel like I don't really need to dive into it he's just incredible and one of the best edge players in the entire NFL. He's going up to a 91 just in year 2 here. The Lawrence Taylor comps are not out of hand, in my opinion. Okay, then on the offensive side of the ball, Cooper Rush going to get some love. He looks like a more than capable backup. I'm not going to go as far as saying he's a starting level player, but it's very commendable what he's done within this system and making things work, getting some wins. Noah Brown is going to go up. He's been really impressive. He's not the fastest guy. That's why he falls to the 7th round out of Ohio State. But he knows how to play football, man. He knows how to use that big frame, 225 pounds, and just uses it to not get bumped down the field, to get a little bit of separation, can separate at the catch point and come down with those tough catches. Someone that Cooper Rush trusts to put the ball up to. And now with CeeDee Lamb potentially out this week, Michael Gallup still trying to get back healthy, they really need him to step up, and he's done it. Obviously, you also have James Washington out for this team too. So Noah Brown's been pretty sweet, as has Tyler Smith. Their first-round pick has stepped over to left tackle and played pretty well, honestly. You know, he has had his losses, but he's played better than I would have expected him to. I figured if they put him at left tackle, he would look like one of the worst pass-protecting left tackles in the NFL immediately, and that hasn't been the case. He looks adequate, and he's been pretty good for this team in the run game as well. But you know who's been a real nice surprise is Terrence Steele. Was undrafted pickup for the Cowboys. He's played in some opportunities with a lot of injuries to those tackles, and he's played pretty well, but mostly as a run blocker. This year, taking a big step forward in his pass protection, has honestly been one of the better right tackles in the NFL this season. So if they found something in him, Tyler Smith, that is how you retool this offensive line that just hasn't been what it was in its glory days with all those guys up front in the early Zeke, Dak Prescott days, if you will. And then this defense is going to have a plethora of boosts going. You know, this defense has basically been unstoppable this season, and it's been at all 3 levels here. So you've got Osa Odigizua is going to continue to go up. Year 2 player out of UCLA. Has been pretty stable against the run this year, and they really need him in that regard because they don't have a whole lot of guys on that interior of the defensive line. He's really all they got there. On the edge, Dante Fowler is also going to go up with Micah Parsons. He comes over from Atlanta. Obviously, someone Dan Quinn is very familiar with, and he has been reinvigorated here in this system. A rotational pass rusher that he's just been really efficient, coming in off the bench, a one-trick pony, just using that get-off and his ability to get after the quarterback to do so, and he's been good at doing so. Trayvon Diggs is going to go up too as well. He's having his best year for sure. He's been much more stable in coverage. He's still making plays in the football when he gets those opportunities, but he's just been riding guys' hip pockets. He's been much, much better in coverage, and that was the knock on him, was that he would give up 1,000 yards and still get, 10 picks. But this year, it looks like he might give up half the amount of yardage with how he's playing in coverage. So he's going to go up too, and I like this version of Trayvon Diggs much better than the version last year where he's getting beat every other play, but somehow ended up with 10 picks. Also, Anthony Brown's going to go up. He's just been around forever at this point, and he's just pretty comfortable. He's got long speed, but he's not like the lengthiest guy or the quickest guy. So he's just a decent number 2 corner that has done an impressive job to hang around here and is playing with a lot of confidence behind this pass rush for sure. Deron Bland was a day 3 pick for them. He has come in certain opportunities and played all right. So he's going to go up 1. All 3 of these safeties as well. Donovan Wilson has been spectacular back there. He is the leader of the back end there. He feels like the guy that's making sure everyone's in the right place. He's the versatile safety that can do a little bit of everything, as is Malik Hooker. But yeah, Donovan Wilson was a 6th round pick for the Cowboys. He's been good, but his coverage seems to have taken another step up this year as well. He's been kind of all over the field for the Cowboys. Malik Hooker was a breakout candidate for this Cowboys defense, was in a rotation last year with, it was DeMonte Casey, right? But Hooker really looked the part, and he looked like he had really added a physical element to his game that he didn't necessarily have in Indianapolis, and he's putting it all together right now. And this safety duo playing behind this pass rush is definitely trending up, along with Israel Mukuamu, who has quite literally just been asked to play the Jaron Curse role. Curse has been hurt since week 1, so they take another 6'4" defensive back, throw him on tight ends, throw him on bigger receivers, and bring him in on dime packages, and use him as a matchup kind of slot corner safety type, and he has played that role very well for the Cowboys. And then their kicker, Brett Maher, has been good as well. So everything's really going right for the Cowboys. They don't have a single player going down here. And let's move on to the Washington Commanders. And our star of the month for Washington is going to be second-year corner Benjamin St-Juste, who finally got a chance to start on the outside in a game that I believe it was William Jackson missed a game. And man, he looked good. Obviously, that length is going to help him out on the outside, but someone that was known for being particularly quick for a 6'3" corner. And yeah, just got in the way of some passes and looked really comfortable out there in that zone-heavy system. And William Jackson's back now, so they put St-Juste back in the slot that I'm not entirely sure if that's his best spot, but you got to love the optimism that his performance on the outside brings to the potential future of this secondary. And then on the offense, John Bates, another second-year player out of Boise State. Not much of a factor in the passing game for them, but really flashed as a run blocker in his rookie season and has continued to do so in year 2. Not just a run-blocking specialist, but definitely one of the better run-blocking tight ends already. Then you got Sam Cosmi. I think he's hurt, going to miss some time, but he continues to just maul dudes in the run game, which is so cool because that was not his billing coming out of Texas. Was more of a pass protecting specialist in that pass heavy Big 12 offense. But honestly, from the second he earned that starting right tackle spot, he's been one of the better run blocking right tackles in the league. He's shown a ton of athleticism and toughness to move people in the run game. And he's only getting better as a pass protector. And you expect him to be a good pass protector because that was what he was great at coming out as a college prospect. So Sam Cosmi is a really nice piece for Washington. I still can't believe they got him in the second round. He looks like a total gem of a second round tackle. And then let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. They've had their issues with this defense, but some young players have played well. Shaka Toney in a rotational kind of early down role has played valiantly. Jamin Davis, I struggled to boost him because he continues to just get abused in coverage, but obviously expectations are low. Rating down there is a 66 overall. He has been much better against the run. He's missing less tackles as well, so going to give him a little bit of love, and hopefully he can figure out how to cover a pass. Kendall Fuller's going to come down 1, just has been giving up too many yards, not living up to that 82, so he's going to come down 1. And then both these safeties are going to go up 1. Derek Forrest, a favorite of mine, coming out of Cincinnati, really athletic dude, a bit of a raw player, but gets an opportunity. I think it was week 1, Cam Curl was out, and they go to Forrest, and he balled out. And he has stayed on the field, earning those opportunities, and continues to play well. Maybe not quite as good as his debut, but I do think they have something in Forrest. And was he part of that 21 class as well, or was he a year later? Yeah, Forrest was last year as well. So between Forrest and Cosmi and maybe getting something in John Bates, it might not matter quite as much if Jamin Davis never becomes a good player because they got some freaking players there. And St-Juste, of course, too. So a lot of young players for Washington moving up this week. And Cam Curl, by the way, continues to ball. I'll talk about draft steals. I mean, he's just week after week, it feels like ever since he's been the starter and coming into the league in 2020, he's just been making plays. He's not a super athlete. It's why he fell into the 7th round, but he's genuinely one of the smarter safeties in the league. He plays all over the field, can come down into the box, defend the run. He can man guys up. He can take away the middle of the field. He's just a really nice starting safety that continues to impress. Okay, the Miami Dolphins, star of the month, none other than Tua Tagovailoa. Not a surprise there. Just really has made some very impressive throws. If you put together a top 10 highlight reel of Tua's career, I think all 10 of those plays might be in this season. He's just finding windows that not a lot of quarterbacks are capable of seeing. He's throwing the ball with velocity, throwing windows down in the red zone, whether it's with that anticipation and velocity or whether it's using his feet, moving around and extending plays. Obviously, you hope that he can get back healthy and continue to develop because he still has a long ways to go. He's still made some very questionable interceptions and is not a perfect player, but it has been a lot of optimism with everything coming in with this offense, with how Tua has played, and hopefully he can get cleared and get back, and it's not a career-altering injury for him. But he obviously has had a lot of help as well. Jalen Waddle has been spectacular in year 2, just one of the better playmakers in the league. There's no other way to put it, and he's been producing inside this offense that's kind of perfectly built for Waddle's run after catch ability to be maximized. A couple of depth pieces have played their roles as well. Trent Sherfield's been a really nice, bigger-bodied perimeter run blocker for this team because they do use Waddle and Hill, over the middle of the field so much. They do need some guys to seal the perimeter on some of these screens and wide zone stuff, and Sherfield has done that in certain opportunities. And River Crocraft has been kind of a third down, red zone slot option. Very minimal opportunities, but he's got a couple touchdowns and just a couple of nice role-playing receivers there. And then Robert Hunt has had his best season inside this offense. I wasn't sure if he was going to be the right fit. He's kind of that plodding, mauling guard. Not a horrible athlete, but sometimes guards are scheme-dependent guys, and I felt like in a kind of moving offensive line scheme, if that makes sense, where they're getting these guys on the move, reach blocking, and resetting these pockets on play action. Wasn't sure how Robert Hunt was going to handle it, but clearly has enough athleticism when paired with his toughness and all-around general technique to continue to thrive here. He was their best offensive lineman coming in, other than Teron Armstead, who's been fantastic. But yeah, Hunt continues to play well, and he's going up. And then on the defensive side of the ball, this defense has been great too. Zach Sealer just continues to ascend. He was a big studs and duds riser last year, and he just keeps it going here. His run defense is remarkable. He is just very instinctive. He plays with great technique and leverage, and he reads plays from that 4-eye position that they use him within the scheme. He's a classic Belichick system fit, but that's what they got here, and he's thriving in that role. And then Melvin Ingram, just such a good, sneaky pickup by the Dolphins. He was good for the Steelers. They let him go. He was good for the Chiefs. They let him go. And the Dolphins were like, we kind of need another edge here. Let's bring in Melvin Ingram. This is a guy that has played in systems in the past that ask him to drop into coverage and be that versatile edge. And he's just picked up where he left off in his prime. I mean, honestly, he just looks explosive and versatile. He's defending the run. He's dropping in coverage. He's winning as a rusher. Just a super underrated pickup there, getting Melvin Ingram into this front seven that is all of a sudden really good. And then into the secondary, Kader Coho, had to create him in Madden, undrafted free agent pickup. Still just not super familiar with Coho, but he's looked good on the tape. I mean, the first week or two, he was out there just kind of rotating in dime packages, and then you'd see him pop off the middle of the field, making tackles. But in week 4 against Cincinnati, he had to step in there and be a full-time starting corner with some of those injuries. And he did okay. I mean, he definitely lost some reps, but definitely looks like they seem to have found somebody as an undrafted pickup in Cater Coho. Unlike Noah Igbenogany, former first-round pick, genuinely looks like one of the bigger busts in the last 4 or 5 drafts. He comes in, 20 years old. The hope was he would, put his head down, get to work, and develop his game, and he just has had none of that. He's been a healthy scratch. He's going to be a trade candidate for this team, and they want nothing to do with him. So he's going to come down for not playing as a former first-round pick, and he's got undrafted guys playing ahead of him. It's pretty embarrassing. Then Javon Holland going to go up 1 for that big game he had against the Bills. Was all over the field in coverage. Simply put, one of the ascending superstar safeties in this league in year 2 who just continues to check every single box. And then just a -2 for the punter. Metrics not living up to that 80 grade that he had coming in to the season. Next up, the Philadelphia Eagles. This is one a lot of people are going to be waiting for. Jalen Hurts, the star of the month, obviously getting a big +6. I did the film breakdown on Jalen Hurts a couple weeks ago. If you have not seen it yet, definitely recommend checking it out. It's one of my a video that I'm most proud of, I suppose. I really like that one and spent a lot of time digging up some film on it. So if you have not seen the Jalen Hurts film breakdown, check it out. It really sums up my thoughts on how well he's playing, and I want to defer you to that video instead of talking about it here. So just go check that out if you have not already. But he's been awesome. +6, the star of the month, Jalen Hurts for the Eagles. Been a big part of their success. But it's not just him. A lot of pieces on this offense stepping up. Miles Sanders has been pretty good. He's got a lot of open run lanes. I think his you look at that like PFF run grade for him. It all adds up, right? Like they have this incredible offensive line. The scheme's doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, and teams are afraid of the passing game here. And he's got a lot of open lanes to run with. He's going to produce. The rushing numbers are going to look good. I'm not trying to dunk on Miles Sanders, but I still don't love his vision. I feel like he could be a little bit better given how athletic he is, but we are going to give him a little bit of respect for how much he is producing there. And then A.J. Brown is worth every single penny that the Eagles paid to get him and more. I mean, you look back on this, the fact that they only had to give up the 18th pick for him is pretty insane. Obviously, a lot of cap space to pay him, but he's honestly been better than he ever has been for the Eagles. This is a more open offense. Obviously, in Tennessee, it was so much play action and attacking the middle of the field, and they sure as hell have been attacking the middle of the field here, but they'll line them up outside, throw them go balls. They get them going on a lot of slants and easy short route stuff, run after catch. I mean, they have really unlocked A.J. Brown, even in a way that the Titans weren't fully doing. Has he been the best receiver in the NFL this season? I guess Tyreek Hill might still be that, but like I said, worth every single penny. He's going up 3 to a 92 this month. Definitely could have been a star of the month in a month where Jalen Hurts didn't break out like he did. Devonta Smith's also going to get a +1 for that game against Washington, where he mossed, I think, every single starter for the Commanders in the secondary at some point in that game. It's just crazy that a guy that's 170 pounds is capable of making catches like that, and he did it in college in the SEC, so it's not a fluke. His production hasn't been insane this year because it's been a lot of A.J. Brown, but Devonta Smith is a baby number 1 wide receiver for this team. And then for the defense, you've got a couple of veterans, really playing well. Several of them. You got Brandon Graham here, Darius Slay, James Bradbury. Everything is working for this team. A couple of older players that you might have, I guess, thought could have taken a step back or not been much of a factor in the case of a Brandon Graham. But coming off this season-ending injury last year, he looks something like his old self. He's been getting after the quarterback and has been a weapon for that pass rush, as has Hassan Reddick. I was definitely wrong about Jalen Hurts with this team, but I was kind of wrong about Hassan Reddick as well, in that he would come into this scheme and they would get him going in the same way that Carolina kind of manufactured pressures for him, or at least allowed him to thrive as that wide 9. A tip of the cap to Jonathan Gannon, who last year basically just had 4 guys put their hand in the dirt and get after the quarterback with 4-man rushes. They've completely changed the scheme in a way that can help Hassan Reddick thrive, because Reddick is most effective when you get him as a weapon on cross stunts and get him screaming off the edge and use the threat of that speed in a way that pairs well with the scheme. And they've done that very well, and his production has been fantastic. And he's got one-on-one wins as well. It's not just the scheme. But yeah, he's been worth the signing there. It's something I wasn't quite sure on that signing, so definitely. And then TJ Edwards continues to be one of the more underrated players in this league. He's one of the least athletic starting linebackers in the entire league, but one of the smartest and one of the most physical linebackers out there. He doesn't get fooled by play action, and even if he's a half step slower than a lot of linebackers, he's a full step ahead of the game as far as anticipating what's coming his way, and it allows him to be a functional coverage player while also being a really good run defender and a good blitzer, because he is a full-sized linebacker at 240 pounds. He's got that Big Ten Wisconsin throwback mentality, and God, he was awesome in that game against Jacksonville. Felt like he was born to play in a monsoon game like that. So I got to shout out TJ Edwards, who's been special for this defense. Darius Slay, I mean, that game against Justin Jefferson alone is worthy of this +2 boost, but he was awesome last year, and I think coming in, I just didn't even really think to call him a top 5 corner because he's 32 years old, but he still has all the athletic tools. His mind is clearly elite at the position, and he's always been in one of those top 5 corners. There's no reason he shouldn't be in that conversation here in 2022. James Bradbury, another just fantastic addition for this offseason, essentially stealing him from the Giants, who mismanaged their cap. They get him on a pretty cheap 1-year deal here in Philadelphia. Don't think he's going to be getting another cheap 1-year deal after this year, but betting on himself a little bit and playing great within this system. Just a beautiful interception this last week on Trevor Lawrence, peeling off of his zone and baiting him from a perimeter cover 3 assignment for an interception. And he's been all around good. Avonte Maddox has been really solid in the slot, maybe having his best year. So everything's working for this defense, except for maybe Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I think this is more a matter of he's been a slot corner, and they traded for him to play safety for a new system. So I think this could just be a 1 step back before he takes 2 steps forward on this defense, because they're asking him to do something that he's never really done. And I do like him more in the slot, and they obviously have Avonte Maddox there, so maybe it's just not a great fit, and he can go back to being a slot corner in free agency soon. But I'm also going to give him some time to maybe figure this safety thing out too, because he's super instinctive. But he has been really like the one lone anything close to a liability in that defense. All right, next up we have the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of corners are going to be stars of the month here. It's a good month for cornerbacks, I suppose. But A.J. Terrell, a lot of talk coming into the year about how underrated he is as a player, not receiving all-pro votes, not making the NFL top 100 list. Just a player that not tons of people were aware of because of how bad the Falcons were last year. But he's basically continued his play from last year. He goes into Seattle, follows DK Metcalf around, and definitely got the best of him. He had about 5 pass breakups in that game and was a true alpha corner, just shadowing a freak athlete wide receiver that only a few corners in the NFL can do. And then he follows it up with a good performance against Amari Cooper the next week. So A.J. Terrell, I know we're kind of making every corner in the NFL, it feels like, into the top 5 corner conversation. There's a lot of great ones right now. But A.J. Terrell as well definitely needs to be a part of that discussion. But over to the offensive side of the ball, Caleb Huntley, an undrafted second-year running back, I believe, gets an opportunity as Cordarrelle Patterson gets injured last week against the Browns and comes in and definitely looks the part. He's an unathletic guy that didn't go drafted for that reason, but was a productive college back, was a part of it. I believe he was there with Elijah Mitchell, right? he was the other guy there. I could be wrong in the college there, but I think Caleb Huntley either way was a part of a 2-back system and was equally productive. But a big-bodied guy with good vision steps in and really helped the Falcons come back and beat the Browns hand in hand with Tyler Algier, who I also like. So was a 61 in the basically default Madden ratings, and we're going to bump him up all the way to a 68. He definitely looks functional. Keith Smith, the fullback, has kind of arrived. He was a running back for a while, but he's blocking his ass off for the Falcons. He's going to get some love. Brian Edwards is going to come down here. He's been a healthy scratch for the Falcons. I don't want to entirely write him off because Atlanta hasn't exactly shown that they can use their most talented players in the best ways. Cough, cough, Kyle Pitts. But obviously not getting on the field in a wide receiver room that involves Olamide Zaccheaus and there's a Hodge in there. Is it Darius Hodge? Anyway, whoever it is, Brian Edwards should be starting over him, and he's not. So he's going to come down. Olamide Zaccheaus, though, has been impressive. He's that undersized guy that can really separate. Not a huge catch radius, but if you get an accurate ball thrown to him, he will catch it and can get open. And just been a nice piece for that passing game where they've desperately needed it. And then Parker Hesse, getting a +7 here. Very minimal opportunities last season, but was just mauling dudes in the run game. And obviously a crowded tight end room there last year, but this year they're taking Kyle Pitts off the field so that Parker Hesse can come in and block. He's been that good. So yeah, he's going to get a huge boost here. Maybe one of the best run blocking tight ends in the league right now. He's an Iowa guy. He's I think he's like 6'3", 260 pounds, really able to get leverage with that build. And yeah, nice piece. Caleb McGarry having a nice year. He's going to go up. Been a better run blocker this year. Right next to Chris Lindstrom, who's been ridiculous in the run game. And he's a really nice guard, like, that people don't talk about. He's a star guard. He's one of the better in the league. He's not perfect in pass protection, but his athleticism and ability to operate this wide zone offense is a perfect fit. So, they got a superstar guard, frankly, in Chris Lindstrom. Then we flip, not quite yet, actually. We got to talk about Matt Hennessy, who's going to come down as well for not playing. I thought Matt Hennessy was really trending upwards. Year 2 was good for him as a run blocker. Definitely had his deficiencies as a pass protector, but didn't really see a reason for them to bench him for Drew Dahlman, a very similar player. I just thought Matt Hennessy was a year ahead of the development of a guy like Drew Dahlman. Dahlman's been playing. He's been fine. Hennessy is not. I don't know what he did to get put in the doghouse here, but is going to come down for that reason. But another player that I'm not giving up on. This seems to be a pretty stubborn coaching staff. But Taquan Graham, as we move over to the defensive side of the ball, has been really nice. I kind of went out on a limb in my Falcons deep dive where I said that Taquan Graham is better than Marlon Davidson, who was a second-round pick in that same draft class. Well, the tape at the end of last season told you that, and Taquan Graham had a few nice games when given the opportunity last year, and he has taken hold of a starting job here and definitely is trending up. It's still been a small sample size, but he's a really athletically gifted defensive lineman that seems to have a good head on his shoulders, and they might have a future starter there in Taquan Graham, who's doing a little bit of everything, defending the run and getting after the quarterback. As is Abdullah Anderson. He's been around on some practice squads. He's been on some 53-man rosters, but never really gotten a big opportunity. And he's basically a third rotational piece, like part-time starter for this team, and another guy that's just, looked the part. He's defended the run okay. He's gotten a couple pressures and needed to get some respect. Nothing crazy up to a 67, but he was a total no-name as a 60 coming into the year. Then into the second level, Michael Walker has actually really struggled against the run this season, but he's shown a lot of instincts and length to disrupt some passing lanes this year. Several pass deflections. He gets the pick 6, I believe. Did he house it? It was a nice interception on Matthew Stafford regardless to help lead that comeback. And yeah, I think he's just a nice athlete with some good wingspan to get in the way of passing lanes, and could be someone that if he can figure out the run defense side of things, could be a really nice linebacker for them. Showed some good flashes last year as well, and he's building upon them. Into the secondary, Darren Hall is getting some good reps out there, just kind of rotating around, but I liked Darren Hall. I think they spent a 4th-round pick on him. Just a smooth athlete, a smart player, and I see starting potential in him, and I want to see more from him, obviously, but he's been, in good position when they've thrown him in there. So +1 for Darren Hall. And then D. Alford had to be created, was not in Madden, comes out of the Canadian Football League, and he's also been a really nice piece. And sometimes you just don't know with these guys. He's probably not going to result in anything, but he's been kind of all over the field and basically earned a bit of a starting job for this secondary. So keep an eye on D. Alford there. And then both these young safeties are playing well this year. Richie Grant really coming along now. Had a hard time getting on the field last year as almost a first-round pick. I think he was like the 36th overall pick for them in last year's draft. They needed an early impact at safety, and they didn't get it in Richie Grant. But a talented player, really versatile skill set, and has been much better this year in coverage, so he's going to go up. And then Jalen Hawkins is, he's been very reliable as far as coming down and being a secure tackler. I still don't see him as like a long-term starter or anything, but he's played valiantly. Now we have the San Francisco 49ers. No surprise that Talanoa Hufanga is going to be our star of the month for the Niners. He's been stealing the show. The hype train for him has left the station, and it is at full speed. He was a fun watch at USC, but everyone just kind of assumed that with poor testing numbers, he was going to be a guy that had a limited upside. Well, there has been no limits to his upside this season. He's basically on a trajectory for an all-pro season. Whether that continues, we'll have to wait and see, but it's been a little bit of everything with him. It's been getting involved in pass coverage over the middle of the field. It's been making an impact in the run. He's just a super fun watch, and it's hard not to think about Troy Polamalu when you watch him because of the hair and the name. But he does kind of play like him, to be honest. I don't think he's quite the athlete that Troy was. I would need to do some research on that, but that's kind of the comp for him with how he's playing right now. And he has taken what was a question mark for the Niners coming into the year on that defense in that strong safety position and made it a true strength. As for the offense, it hasn't been a whole lot to speak of. The good things that have happened has been Deebo Samuel doing his thing for the most part. I think Brandon Ayuk has played well too, but I think I have him rated appropriately, but he has been a nice piece for them, worth mentioning. But Jeff Wilson is, met the call for the opportunity he's been given. He's been fine. He's got some juice. I don't think he's going to keep this job when Elijah Mitchell gets back. And then Aaron Banks has also answered another major question for this team. The offensive line in general is a big question mark, and he was a potential liability coming into the year, and he just looks different. Looks more athletic in the run game. He's been really nice in pass protection. Was a second-round pick, so you expect him to play like this. There was just a lot of questions on if he could, and it's good to see that he can. Nick Bosa was also worthy of being star of the month. I mean, he's probably the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year right now. He was my pick coming in, and I just want to toot my own horn a little bit because I went out on a limb. It wasn't a huge limb or anything, but I wanted to remind people over this summer, like, hey, Nick Bosa should be in the conversation with TJ Watt and Myles Garrett for the best edge rusher in the league, because nobody before this season ever would even think about that. And quite clearly, he deserves that. He is probably, like, when healthy, has been the most efficient pass rusher in the NFL. Obviously missed that second season, but he's keeping at it. He had 14 pressures last week against the Rams. 30 on the season in 4 games is just absurd. That would be on pace to break the pressure record by about 30%, to put that in perspective. And he leads the league in sacks. So a truly special player, a game wrecker for this defense. And then Samson Ebukam continues to be underrated. Now, he's very scheme not dependent, but he benefits from the scheme because of all of these cross stunts and all these different athletes that they use on the inside. Ibukam is uniquely built. He's compact and short and really athletic, so he can just kind of blow shit up. But he's really good at staying aware while playing in some of those chaotic, disruptive situations. You'll see him kind of at a weird angle or in a spot where he maybe shouldn't see a ball carrier or see the quarterback, and he'll still contort his body to make a play. Just a unique pass rusher that is becoming a real headache for opposing offensive lines, as is Charles Omenihu. When the Niners acquired him, it was just kind of like, ooh, that's going to be fun. And it was fun for a few weeks last year, and then he got hurt. So he's back healthy now. Omenihu is perfect for this system because they have several of these guys on the outside, right? But they don't have a ton of guys on the inside. They do have Eric Armstead, but he's been banged up. So Omenihu's been able to really play that role well in that just disruptive three technique, cause chaos, blow up the guard, have enough speed to maybe slant outside and disrupt a tackle so that a guy like Samson Ibukam can come unblocked on those cross stunts. This is just the perfect combination of talent and scheme. Kevin Givens has been a little bit more of that traditional starter. He has basically filled in nicely in the DJ Jones role. Givens was really good down the stretch last season. I'm certainly not surprised to see him playing well. I talked about him in the Niners deep dive, being a potential breakout player. Hassan Ridgeway was a nice little veteran pickup. He's been a good rotational piece for them as well. And sticking in the front seven here, Dre Greenlaw, after a horrific week one performance against the Bears, you can make a case that he single-handedly lost them that game with his coverage busts and stupid penalties. But ever since then has received a contract extension and played some of his best football. So a good bounce back from Dre Greenlaw after that week one. And then with these corners, Emmanuel Mosley continues to play well. He's just so technically sound. He's smart in zone coverage and physical enough in man. So he's a really good number two corner now that they got Shar Ward on the other side. And then Sam Womack flew out the gate week one, looked like a potential star slot corner, and he did get hurt, but was a lot of hype for him. Was a drafted player out of Toledo with a lot of athletic traits. Was another question mark, and they let K'Wan Williams go at that slot corner position. I don't know what Womack's injury is, if and when he'll be back. I didn't take the time to look into it, but he did look good out the gate when he, it was interesting right away when he kind of won that slot corner job very early in the preseason for a day three rookie is impressive alone, let alone how he played when the season started. And then even Tashawn Gibson was a nice pickup for the Niners. They saw him as a nice kind of added floor pickup, maybe in case of Hufanga couldn't reach his upside there. But, Reed, it is Reed, right? Jimmy Ward. I don't know why I can never think of Jimmy Ward's name. I got it that time. But Jimmy Ward hasn't been healthy. So they've had to go to Tashawn Gibson, and he's kind of found the fountain of youth here. He's played really good in this system. Now we have the New York Giants, where the star of the month, I struggled with this one. I kind of wanted to split it with Saquon and Andrew Thomas because both these guys have been special. But when I think of the first month, I really think about Saquon Barkley and his return to his prime. I've said this before, but I'll reiterate. Saquon Barkley is one of those guys that you just want to be able to tell your grandkids that you got to watch Saquon Barkley. You want him to become that kind of player that people want to hear about what he was like watching him play, because he's just such a special athlete. And it was a worry that all of the injuries had cost him that athleticism, and it has not. He still has that juice, so springy and athletic and fast, and it's not like he's getting great run blocking either. It's been better than maybe what he's had in years past, but he's just healthy, and he's keeping this Giants team alive. I mean, their record probably flips without Saquon Barkley. So he's going to get +5, kind of right back up into that elite running back territory. And a few more weeks like this, and he might be right all the way up there with, those top guys that we've talked about already. Let's talk about Andrew Thomas, because he's kind of like my half star of the month. He is the number one football player per PFF right now. Not just offensive lineman, but the highest rated NFL player in the NFL right now. And it just makes me so happy, because I loved Andrew Thomas coming out. I was a bit of a defender. People came at me a little bit when I had him as my number one offensive tackle. And at this point, I think I would take Andrew Thomas over Tristan Wirfs. And it's not even like that Tristan Wirfs, there's anything wrong with him. He's incredible. But Andrew Thomas might be even better. It was really just a matter of getting NFL coaching. He never ran a lot of true kick slides at Georgia. And to my credit, again, I mentioned that in his evals. Like, he needs to improve his kick slide technique, which is a very coachable thing. And if he does, people are dramatically sleeping on his athleticism. And you see that in his run blocking. I mean, a lot of the times when Saquon does get those open lanes, it's Andrew Thomas climbing to the second level and finding guys. But you can see it in that PFF run grade as well. I think it's like 92 right now for his run block grade. And it bothered me when people said Andrew Thomas doesn't have high-end athleticism, because he was in a draft class with Mekhi Becton, who I thought Andrew Thomas was a better athlete than Mekhi Becton. Becton just happened to be huge and still really athletic. And obviously Tristan Wirfs is a special athlete too. I've even said Tristan Wirfs is like the Saquon Barkley of tackle prospects. But yeah, I mean, Andrew Thomas, he's just so refined at this point. He pretty much locked up Micah Parsons in pass protection. It's all there for him, and he's just going to continue to climb. You could even argue 86 is too low for how he's playing right now. But yeah, gotta love what Andrew Thomas is doing. Now, the rest of this team has some downs to talk about. Kenny Golladay, I mean, he's just not even getting on the football field. We saw it in the preseason, lazy routes. He was in the doghouse, now almost forced into a chance to play, and maybe he can bring something out. But it honestly feels like he got his payday. He went to the big market and doesn't really give a shit anymore. I hope I'm wrong about that, but that is really what it feels like with Kenny Golladay. So it's kind of a shame. And he's not getting traded anywhere. No one wants that contract. A lot of tight ends here, making some plays, making some noise, I should say. Especially Daniel Bellinger. I like Daniel Bellinger coming out, and this was kind of a good, sneaky, deep tight end class, and Bellinger fit the mold of the kind of, George Kittle mold, if you want to go that far, but more specifically like the Dawson Knox mold was the better comparison with Brian Daboll coming in here. Really athletic guy and a good blocker with full size that just went underutilized in the passing game in college. That was Daniel Bellinger, and they're asking more of him in the passing game, and he is showing that he can handle it. And he's run blocking well, and looks like a guy that maybe shouldn't have fallen as far as he did. So a good draft pick there. And then the other two guys, Myrick and Hudson, much more like run game contributors, but they are getting significant snaps and doing their part there. But the blocking and the O-line is not all positive, as Evan Neal is going to have to take a book out of Andrew Thomas's playbook. And I was very high on Evan Neal coming out, and I, just like Andrew Thomas, am going to hold faith. And if you look back to studs and duds in 2020, Andrew Thomas would have suffered similar reductions in his ratings early on in his career. So I still am very optimistic in Evan Neal to get there, but it has not been pretty. He has struggled on the right side. He has struggled in pass protection, and yeah, he's just going to have to get better. But I still have a lot of hope in Evan Neal. Mark Lewinsky is a little bit more suspect. He was a guy that kind of came out of nowhere for the Colts, honestly. He was released by Seattle when their offensive line wasn't any good, and then gets to Indianapolis and kind of breaks out as a starting caliber guard. But he did have a hiccup year in the middle of that really 3-year time in Indianapolis. He was good initially, kind of rough in year 2, and then really good in year 3, unless there was a 4th year that I'm not remembering. But the worry here is that he is maybe someone that benefited from playing on a really good offensive line, and coming into New York, he's just a guy. They gave him a really large amount of money, so hopefully that's not the case, and he can get comfortable with this blocking scheme rather quickly. But it is a bit of a concern as he's been getting beat in both regards pretty badly. So he's going to come down one, and definitely on watch to keep coming down if he's playing as bad as he's played, because he hasn't even played as well as a 73 this season. Then we flip over to the defensive side of the ball. Dexter Lawrence is having his best career so far, not just from a pass rush perspective, where he had, was it 6, 7 pressures against Chicago? Dominated that performance, but probably having his best season in run defense as well. This is a former first-round pick. He's a freak athlete and probably doesn't get discussed enough as someone that has the upside to be something like a Jordan Davis or Vita Vea. We just kind of forget that Dexter Lawrence was sort of a part of that conversation when he was drafted. So could be a big year for Dexter Lawrence. O'Shane Ximines was, I guess, not surprised to see him playing well within this system. And it brought back some memories to when O'Shane Ximines was drafted. I consistently mocked him in like my 3-round mocks. I was always putting him in Baltimore because he's a power rusher. And he totally fits the mold of that Matt Judon, Zadarius Smith, Pernell McPhee. He is totally in that mold, and that's why I constantly mocked him to Baltimore back then. And guess what? Now he's playing for Wink Martindale in the same system that really thrives off of these just guys that can get off the ball and use their length and strength and push the pocket. So even when Ojulari and Thibodeau are back, I don't think Ximines is going to just disappear. He's been really good at applying pressure and has been a nice, pleasant surprise for the Giants here in year 3. Then we get to the secondary here. Fabian Moreau, nice pickup by the Giants. The Texans end up releasing him. The Texans had a bunch of defensive backs, and they could have kept him. They could have cut him either way. But Moreau is just a good, fourth corner to have around. He's an athletic guy, and it's just a good risk to add to your team, and that's what the Giants are experiencing here. And he actually fits this scheme quite well, fairly similarly to what we talked about with Brandon Faison in that zone-heavy Colts defense. Well, Fabian Moreau on a team that is just going to ask him to use his length and continue to develop his press technique as he enters the veteran days of his career. He's a good athlete. Just play press man and not have to worry about playing zone, which he did struggle with on and off in Washington. There's no reason Fabian Moreau can't become a starter. This guy was a 3rd-round pick with a ton of athletic tools. So he's off to a good start in New York, and I don't think he's going to let this starting job go anytime soon. And then Aaron Robinson also came out the gate and started well, but he gets hurt. So I want to see him get back out there. But I like Aaron Robinson. He's another 3rd-round pick. The Giants have some talent back there. They don't have a bunch of first-round guys, but between Aaron Robinson, Fabian Moreau, Julian Love, and the other UCLA slot corner that I can't think of his name right now. They got a couple of UCLA guys there with Moreau. But yeah, they got some talent back there. I'm curious if this pass rush keeps working and these corners come together. Maybe this Giants defense can be a little bit better than I've let on. Then Jamie Gillen, their punter, is going to go up +3. He's been really nice for them. I just wanted to take a real quick intermission to remind you guys that if you enjoy my analysis, make sure you are subscribed to the Fully Inflated Football podcast. We now have a separate YouTube channel for the podcast this year. That link is in the description below. Also, just search Fully Inflated Football podcast wherever you get your audio feeds, Spotify, iTunes, you name it. That's the Fully Inflated Football podcast. Make sure you're subscribed. Let's get back to studs and duds. Next up, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their star of the month is also Josh Allen on the edge. God, it would just be so funny if we got an MVP Josh Allen and Defensive Player of the Year Josh Allen. Nick Bosa and Mike Parsons might make that hard, but Josh Allen is playing close to that level. This guy was drafted very, very high and has incredible athletic ability. And what's awesome about Josh Allen is he's really added a strength element to his game that wasn't always there at Kentucky, and he's continued to refine his overall game too, whether it's his pass rush technique or ability to play the run or ability to drop into coverage, just a true do-it-all edge, playing in that 3-4 system that's just unleashing him, letting him win one-on-one, and then also a scheme that really uses stunts and blitzes to just let him create chaos and be a monster. So Josh Allen reaching his potential here, really fun to see. He's been a difference maker for that defense. And then talk about potential. We got Trevor Lawrence, gonna go up +2. Dude, he got like a 26 PFF passing grade for the game against the Eagles. I did not think it was that bad. I thought the interception that Bradbury had was a really nice play where he just got baited by a veteran. Obviously not a great throw, but far from the most egregious interception. And then they must have been attributing some of those fumbles to his passing grade because he did lose 3 fumbles. But overall, it's just really difficult to pass in those conditions. And then you look at his 3 weeks before that, and he's played really good football. Just has done such a good job of making high difficulty reads in the drop back passing game. And then he's also doing all of the easy stuff. He's, taking what's there. He's hitting Christian Kirk in stride on those nicely designed crossers and different stuff that they're doing there. So I've just been really impressed by Trevor Lawrence. It does feel like he's arrived to me, and I think he's going to bounce back very, very nicely after a rough week against the Eagles. And then Christian Kirk, I have talked about him a decent amount on this channel, but I just will reiterate that he doesn't feel like that much of an overpay at this point. He is the focal point of their passing game, and I don't know who else they would have necessarily gotten in free agency or in the draft outside of maybe drafting like Garrett Wilson instead of Trayvon Walker if they wanted to make that trade-off. But when you look at it, I mean, Kirk's been awesome. He's been way better than, say, Allen Robinson. Not that Allen Robinson would have came back here anyway, but you get the point. He has separated on all 3 levels. He's shown great route running. He's been reliable. He's been awesome. And if he continues to produce like this, he'll keep going up. Marvin Jones, on the other hand, 32 years old, does look like he's 32 years old. He's basically been passed by here by Zay Jones, who was another good addition, another good kind of forward-looking move by the Jags to say, yeah, Marvin Jones doesn't really have it anymore. Let's go get Zay Jones, who's just a more explosive version of Marvin Jones as that number 2 wide receiver. He's actually been getting a ton of targets. Some of his catches are more impressive than others, but, Zay Jones is definitely playing like a $6 million receiver that also felt like perhaps an overpay when they did it. So that's been nice. Evan Ingram's been a nice focal point of the passing game and has been relatively reliable. We'll see how long that lasts. He's a guy that has had stretches and then stretches of drops after that throughout his career. But for now, looks like a nice mismatch piece and a kind of a third passing target to round out a well-balanced group. Then you go to the defensive side of the ball. Already talked about Josh Allen there, but Devin Lloyd, another first-round rookie. So many just athletic, high-upside young players on this defense, and fun to see a lot of these guys step up. Devin Lloyd has been the rare first-round linebacker that's just ready to go right away, and it's not a surprise if you watched him at Utah. He was just so comfortable dropping into zones. A lot of times it felt like you were watching Fred Warner at Utah with the length over the middle of the field and the ability for him to cover players, not grass, and not overcommit to play action. It's been a lot of that for the Jags, and he's even improved his tackling here at the next level. That was, I guess, the one question about Devin Lloyd was he did have stretches of missed tackles at Utah, and it's only 4 weeks, but they have not shown yet for Jacksonville. So Devin Lloyd has been awesome. And then Tyson Campbell, also someone that is easily forgotten about here with this Jags team, but he's off to a good year 2 here. Was pretty good in year 1, honestly. And I liked him at Georgia quite a bit. Just a very technically sound corner. Not the highest upside guy, but it's not like he's short or a poor athlete. So I think he can ascend to be a good starter in this league, as can Andre Sisco, who in year 2 has done a little bit of everything for the Jags And he was the one that ended up with that pick 6 against Jalen Hurts, right? I could be wrong about that. But either way, he's been covering the field well. He's been coming downhill like he likes to do. And a third-round pick last year, really high upside player that has really taken this safety job by storm and I think is certainly trending up. And then Riley Patterson, their young kicker, has been pretty good as well. All right, then we have the New York Jets, another cornerback for Star of the Month for the Jets, and it is Sauce Gardner, who looks the part. They spent the 4th overall pick on him, and he was definitely pro-ready coming out. Was just so technically sound. Reminded me a lot of Pat Surtain, at least in his man coverage ability. Just perfect as far as press coverage goes for a college prospect. I did think Surtain was just a little bit higher IQ in zone, but Sauce not too far behind him. That's just putting it in perspective of the type of player Sauce has shown to be here for the Jets. And he's drawn some tough matchups and really has just looked the part. So he's going to go up 2, and his ascension is off to a quick start here for his NFL career. But let's now start on the offensive side of the ball for the Jets. And Garrett Wilson's going to go up +1. I think he's produced well with Joe Flacco. It's easier said than done. And another guy that just looks the part. I mean, he's separating consistently over the middle of the field. He's got those smooth hands. He's making guys miss after the catch. And I do believe Garrett Wilson has held up his end of the bargain for the Jets here as the number 10 pick and is just getting started for what's going to be a big season for him. CJ Uzomah is going to come down basically because he has lost this job to Conklin. And I don't think Conklin's really been impressive. I know his stats have been there. He's been a volume guy, but the PFF grade supports that. You know, he's just getting a lot of easy, schemed up production, and even then he's dropping some balls. So, like, the fact that CJ Uzomah can't get that job from Conklin is kind of embarrassing. Another guy that maybe he just got his payday and went to the big lights and stopped caring. I don't know. Don't want to jump to conclusions there, but yeah, Uzomah's been a disappointment for the Jets. There's no way around it. Fant's also been pretty disappointing there at tackle. He had a big year for them last year, and he's an interesting player. He was like a 29-year-old breakout, a guy that Seattle tried at tight end occasionally. So, yeah, he's been kind of a polarizing up and down tackle, and we'll I guess just have to monitor his season because he does have theoretical upside, but I don't even know if he's going to necessarily start because Max Mitchell's been okay at right tackle, and they got Dwayne Brown healthy there now, so we'll see, I guess. Laken Tomlinson, a lot of these guard signings have been disappointing, these guys changing teams and not being the same. Laken Tomlinson, you would think would be plug and play, right? Same offense, basically, with LaFleur, who left San Francisco. Very familiar with Laken Tomlinson, but it has not worked out. He has not been paving ways in the run game like he did in San Francisco, and he's been getting beat in pass protection, so he's got to turn things around. He's been playing really poorly for that O-line. For the defense, Quinnen Williams living up to his potential early on this season. Been doing a great job getting after the quarterback. We know the potential's there. It's just been a lack of consistency for him. So he's been consistent out the gate so far. Was another Star of the Month candidate for the Jets. And then Sheldon Rankins is going to go up as well. He looks healthy, man. He's been defending the run even, which is something he hasn't done throughout his career. They really needed someone else to step up there after they let Lorenzo Fatukasi go, and he's done that. And Rankins, it's really always been about health for him, so knock on wood that he can stay healthy. But a do-it-all, former first-round pick, right? Yeah, for the Saints. And definitely has upside to be a good running man next to Quinnen Williams there if he can stay upright. Michael Clemens is also going to go up just because he's played a nice run-defending rotational role for them. And not getting a ton of snaps or anything, but was just a really physical player at Texas A&M. Maybe not the highest upside guy, but good to see him doing what he did well at Texas A&M is translating to the next level. Then in the secondary, DJ Reed just continues to be a pleasant surprise, really. Going back to his time in Seattle, undersized guy who was pigeonholed early on into the slot And basically from the moment he's played outside, he's been a very good corner in the NFL. Just doesn't give up a lot of easy yardage and does a good job of not letting big receivers body him up. And yeah, he's just a good corner. He's a really smart defensive back with good athleticism. I'm a little bit worried about how Jordan Whitehead is playing, removed from that Tampa Bay system. This doesn't look comfortable. He's getting beat in coverage. You're not seeing him fly around and make plays in the run game and in short yardage support against screens and quick hitters like he did in Tampa. He just hasn't looked like that player here for the Jets. So they gave him a decent amount of money and has been a bit of a disappointment for them. Now on to the Detroit Lions. Another cornerback, star of the month. It feels like half of these teams. But Jeff Okudah, former first-round pick, felt like a lot of people had written him off entirely after he gets hurt last year. His rookie season was not what he would have wanted, but has stuck to it. Jeff Okudah has stuck to his technique, and it has helped him stick to the receivers that he's guarding. This guy was a man coverage technician at Ohio State, but you gotta continue to refine that into the next level because his athleticism isn't elite. So he does have to win between the margins with his press and his jams and his his footwork off the line and just ability to anticipate routes and stuff and squeeze routes. So he looks like that first round pick that the Lions spent on him, and hopefully he can continue to climb because God knows this Lions defense needs him. Then we've got DeAndre Swift, who just kind of looks like an elevated version of himself right now. I know he's hurt at the moment, but just so explosive, man. The top speed, and he looks a little bigger too. So he's had some really big plays this year, and it's a guy that was basically a first-round pick. Was my number one running back in that class, regrettably not above Jonathan Taylor, but that was relatively normal. This guy's got a lot of juice, and he's putting it to work at the NFL level. Finally, I mean, I feel like he's just been really inconsistent up until this point, but it feels like he's kind of turned a corner there. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown continues his ascension. Just a machine from the slot, so technically refined. Very similar to me to Cooper Kupp in a lot of ways. Number one is he just kind of gets lost a lot. Like, you kind of always got to do this when you're talking about the production of some of these slot guys. And, Cooper Kupp didn't lead the league in receiving yards by accident, but the reality is he does have a lot of routes schemed up for him. And because of the report on him is he's not amazing against press and he's not going to beat you over the top, teams don't always take those guys seriously as a team's primary target. And we see that a lot of times with Cooper Kupp, where he's not always drawing the coverage attention. And we're definitely seeing that with Amon-Ra St. Brown, where he's just coming wide open on crossing routes. And it's like, why do you keep letting that happen? So there is a little bit of that with Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he also dominates in his route running in the short to intermediate game. He's got consistent hands. He's really tough after the catch. So it's the perfect pairing of skill and teams not taking him as seriously that allows for him to produce at this crazy level. And the other thing he has, like Cooper Kupp, is incredible acceleration after the catch. Just watch the first couple steps. If he catches, say, a stop route or a crossing route, just watch how quickly he's able to accelerate and turn upfield, and watch how quickly it throws off the pursuit angle of whoever is trying to catch him. And it just leads to so many easy yards for a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who has been the focal point of the Lions passing game. I do think it's come a little bit at the cost of DJ Chark, though it's not all, on whatever. Chark hasn't been great for Detroit. He had one nice catch deep down the field, and maybe he's not in the perfect offense to maximize his skill set, but he really doesn't feel like he's separating or is that top receiver that true perimeter vertical ball winner that he was maybe 2 years ago for the Jags. And he wasn't that for the Jags last year before he got hurt. So it's kind of at the point with DJ Chark where I need to see it before I view him as a good starting receiver. He's certainly a weapon and a vertical threat, and he's not bad, but I don't think he's lived up to that 79 rating for a while now, so he's going to come down. Josh Reynolds, on the other hand, is like the opposite, just not a lot of physical talent, but has really made the most of his opportunity. He has won a lot of contested balls, had a huge week here, week 4, and he's just a very sound, big-bodied receiver that knows what he's doing, so he's a really nice 4th receiver for them to have. And then we got Brock Wright. Honestly, it's pass protection for him. Has just been mauling dudes in pass pro, so he's going to go up for that. And then TJ Hawkinson, you got to bump him up after that huge week he had. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. We all saw the production he had. He balled out, former 1st-round pick. Good to see him kind of start pushing his way towards reaching his potential a little bit. Penei Sewell looks like second-half Penei Sewell from his rookie season, which is good for Detroit because first half he was a little similar to like Evan Neal, struggled in pass pro early, settled in the second half, and is settled in to start the season here. I love Penei Sewell, dude. He is a huge reason for this team's offensive success, whether it's buying time for Goff to push the ball downfield or paving ways in the run game. This dude was a premium tackle prospect. Really glad they brought him in, and he has really rounded out an excellent offensive line. Then on the defensive side of the ball, not quite as much positivity. I do like the John Kaminsky pickup. He's basically just played defensive tackle for them, and they've needed him to do that because their interior defensive line is doggy doo-doo, and he's a former, 4th-round pick for the Falcons. Couldn't stay healthy for them. Every year was getting hurt, but has always kind of snuck in and produced a little bit when given an opportunity. And Detroit recognized that and picked him up. And he's healthy, and he's playing pretty well. He might be their best interior defensive lineman right now. But even then, I think he's hurt again. With these linebackers, I'm going to drop Alex Anzalone. He just is kind of lost out there in coverage, and now that they have other linebackers out there and a Malcolm Rodriguez, you can just see the difference. So I'm going to drop Anzalone down and bring Malcolm Rodriguez up from a 67. Love Malcolm Rodriguez, and I'm very proud that I pointed out pre-draft that there is really not a difference between Nakobe Dean and Malcolm Rodriguez. And we haven't seen Nakobe Dean play yet, but I even said that Malcolm Rodriguez is just a faster Nakobe Dean. I literally said that. And then I was like, but I guess he's not better because everybody says he's not better. And I just wasn't bold enough to rank Malcolm Rodriguez above Nakobe Dean, even though I liked his tape better and felt like he was a better athlete with similar size issues. Again, still not trying to dunk on Nakobe Dean. It would be great if Nakobe Dean came out and looked like Malcolm Rodriguez because Malcolm Rodriguez looks freaking incredible. But you can tell that he's got the play diagnostics, which is really impressive for a rookie linebacker. There's tons of first-round linebackers that just don't seem to know half of what Malcolm Rodriguez is capable of diagnosing out there. So he's always the first one there, it feels like. He's flying around the field. He has 4.5 speed, so you can't sleep on that. He is a little bit undersized, so you can feel little moments where he can't quite get his hand in the way of a passing lane, or he misses a tackle because he just isn't able to wrap up. Like, there's going to be moments like that. It's a part of why he fell, but he never should have fallen as far as he did. And it's been super fun to see him basically playing at a, let's just say, all rookie team level for a 6th-round pick. And it helps that he was a Hard Knocks superstar, but God, his tape is backed it up. There's a reason he was a Hard Knocks superstar. A couple of these corners are going to come down. Amani Oruwariye is giving up way too many yards in coverage right now. Contract year for him is not off to a good start. Mike Hughes also has been a very polarizing player since he came into the league as a 1st-round pick and has really struggled with this defense. He ended up blowing the coverage against the Vikings that let KJ Osborne into the end zone for a touchdown, and he's been beat beyond that as well. But then Kirby Joseph gets in for a start week 4 and looked pretty good. 3rd-round pick out of Illinois and played mostly free safety for them. Played a lot of strong safety at Illinois. And, yeah, he looks the part in his first start. Hope we get to see a little bit more about him. Yeah, let's move on. Sticking in the NFC North with the Green Bay Packers. And I can't believe we're doing this, but the star of the month is going to be Allen Lazard, who has earned my respect. He's been a pleasant surprise. I think he's just maximizing what he can be. He's never going to be a great separator, but he has refined his routes to the best of his ability. He has created a decent amount of separation out there. He has really developed a nice confidence level to have secure hands and has started winning some tough balls, whereas he hasn't always done that in the past. My criticism of Allen Lazard, of course, has been that he's not a separator, and I don't think he ever will be. But if you're going to be 6'5", you need to use your size and your hands and be a good contested ball winner. And outside of what probably could have been a touchdown against the Bears, still another example of not being an amazing big-bodied receiver. But outside of that, he has come down with some really impressive balls, and the offense is clearly much better when Rodgers has that kind of safety blanket out there in Allen Lazard. So he's been impressive, and he's even, I mentioned on the podcast this week, he beat Jack Jones on a stop route and just broke his ankles. So, he has some route running ability. In general, he's just been a very nice surprise here. Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to drop him 1. He's not playing at that MVP level right now. This ties him with Mahomes for the QB1 rating. It just feels right. He has not been bad. He's still tied for the first quarterback in the league. But I think that gap is closing a little bit this year, so I wanted to reflect that. And then Romeo Doubs has been mostly sweet with some hiccups in there. He's had a couple moments where he's fumbling the football, some frustrating drops. It feels like he's taken 2 steps forward, then 1 step back. So as long as he keeps doing that, he's probably going to end the year as a Rookie of the Year candidate. He's the one guy on this team that they do trust to separate and does seem to be developing a nice chemistry with Rodgers. So definitely stock up for Romeo Doubs. Some of these offensive linemen going to be on the move. So John Runyon's been sweet. He's having his best season by far. Been kind of a lockdown pass protector at left guard. Josh Myers continues to grow. Just looks like a good, solid second-round pick. They're doing a good job kind of weaponizing him in the run game, getting him on the move, and that's been a pleasant surprise from Josh Myers. And then they have a bit of a tackle controversy, I guess. Elton Jenkins was supposed to just kind of be a stud at right tackle and get back healthy and not have to worry about him, but unfortunately that hasn't been the case. He's been getting beat really since he got out there at right tackle. And that's the one position he hasn't really shown high-level play at. Left tackle, he was really good, but some guys can't necessarily switch over to the other side. And it's also possible that Jenkins isn't fully healthy, so don't entirely know what's going on there, but I do think it's necessary to drop him at least 1 for now and then continue monitoring the situation. But Yosh Nijman has continue to play dominant. His year-to-year development is anything you could dream of for basically a undrafted pickup for a guy with 6'7", a lot of athletic tools. He's your classic project tackle that you hope you give good coaching and eventually comes along. There's no reason Nijman can't be a starting right tackle for this team. In fact, he's played at that level pretty consistently at this point. So yeah, I'm very curious to see if they maybe put Nijman at right tackle and Jenkins back at guard. It might not be a bad idea for them. Onto the defense, Dean Lowry's taking a step back this year. He's so bad against the run. So bad. He plays upright. He doesn't have great play strength. And it's a big reason they kind of need to, I think, start mixing in Devonta Wyatt a little bit more, who I think can hold his own against the run much better and potentially be a better pass rusher as well. Lowry's not terrible, but he's taking a step back this year. Rashawn Gary's going to go up 1. I'm already a big Rashawn Gary truther, so only so much room for him to go up, but he is living up to the hype that I set of him being a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. 5 sacks this season. He's made a difference in every single game defensively. I would hate to see where they were defensively without Rashawn Gary's efforts this year. Such a monster. Then both these linebackers are going to come down. Devondre Campbell was always going to be a fear that he would be a regression candidate, basically a journeyman for 6 years of his career, who comes to Green Bay and has a kind of an anomaly season. I don't think he's all the way back to being basically worthless Devondre Campbell, street free agent pickup Devondre Campbell. Still has made some nice plays in coverage, but he is playing overly conservative against the run. He's been really losing his gap discipline and not getting to the ball carrier. He has already missed about as many tackles as he did last season. So, yeah, he just has not been the same all-pro Devondre Campbell as he was last year, and he's got to turn it around or that contract's going to look bad real quick for Green Bay. Quay Walker as well, also just consistently losing his gap against the run, and this team has been getting run over, and you just watch these linebackers, and they're nowhere to be found. So Quay Walker's going to come down. It's funny what happens when you take a linebacker that had the easiest assignment of any linebacker in college football, playing early down linebacker behind Jordan Davis and all of those guys, a guy that they took off the field on third down. Like Quay Walker was a third-round developmental prospect that they took in the first round and made his expectations way too high. There's been some flashes there, and he might still get there, but he just, honestly, I don't know if he's better than Chris Barnes right now. I would bet that he isn't, actually. Then we got Rasul Douglas going to go up one, just continues to play well. He is not doing what Devondre Campbell did. Now, I will say in the BUCS game, they tried to go man coverage early, and Douglas was getting picked on in man, but we know that that's not what he is. It never has been. In zone coverage, he's been one of the more shut down, zone corners in the league. He's just such a high IQ corner. So they're kind of scheming their way around some different skill sets at corner right now. But when Douglas is in zone, he's all over the receiver. Keyshawn Nixon as well has gotten some opportunities as Jair Alexander keeps kind of getting banged up. And he's been great on special teams, but he's been serviceable on the defense as well. So he's going to go up. Darnell Savage and Adrian Amos are both going to go down. Savage especially, I don't know. I don't know if he has the football IQ to become a really good player. His athleticism is going to compensate for him maybe being a half step too slow, but there's a lot of coverage busts, and I just don't think he's in the right system for his skill set either. A quarters heavy system that demands a lot of headiness from a safety. I don't know if Savage has it. I really don't. Rudy Ford, on the other hand, is making the most of his opportunities. Amos goes down in the Week 4 game, and Rudy Ford, who played well for the Jags last year, by the way, stepped in and played really well. Honestly, played maybe the best game either of these safeties have had all year. So I do think Rudy Ford can play. He's a special teams demon, but he's got athleticism, and maybe he's figuring something out. Then both of these special teamers are going to go up. So you're seeing these special teams in general has been much better with guys like Nixon and Rudy Ford stepping in. But you're also seeing, like, this is a bit of a tangent. I'll try and get it out quickly. But basically the Packers have always filled out their special teams with a bunch of random undrafted free agents that not only make their special teams poor, but are just bad players that don't stick around and make an impact on defense. This year, they actually signed veterans to play special teams, and it turns out those veterans, after being in the league for 4 or 5 years, have learned a thing or two and can help contribute to the defense when you have injuries. So that, in general, has been a nice stride forward for the Packers defense. But yeah, Crosby and Pat O'Donnell have both been really good in the kicking game. All right, then we got the Carolina Panthers. Not a whole lot of positivity here, but it's not all bad. Frankie Louvu has stolen the show. He's going to be the star of the month. He is a true do-it-all linebacker. He can rush the passer, drop into coverage, defend the run, you name it. Anything you might ask any type of linebacker to do, they ask Frankie Louvu to do it. And it seems he can handle everything. He's just been all over the field. He's showed up every single week. He's like the one thing Panthers fans are looking forward to watching right now because he's just been super fun and a nice pickup. It's been kind of a win-win situation. You know, they didn't pay Hassan Reddick. because they felt it was a bit of a system role. They pick up Frankie Louvu, and he looks just as good. And Hassan Reddick goes to a different system, and it's a win-win for the Eagles and Reddick and the Panthers. So it's all kind of a feel-good story with that transition. But talk about transitions and not feel-good situations. Baker Mayfield coming down 3 here in studs and duds for the first time around. I know the system sucks. I certainly have my issues with McAdoo and the play calling, but some of the pass protection has been there, and he's got receivers. Even when the play calling isn't good, you expect a Baker Mayfield to look better than he has. He has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Just looks uncomfortable in the pocket. He's missing throws, having a hard time playing in rhythm. It's been a general disaster, and it does make you kind of wonder if maybe Sam Darnold might be worth taking another look at if and when he gets healthy. I don't know. All these interior offensive linemen have actually held up their end of the bargain. Brady Christensen has fended off some competition to win that starting left guard spot, and he's been pretty good there. A tackle in college, but a technically efficient guy who's played, again, pretty well at left guard. Pat Elflein at center was super fascinating that he was named the starter there. And I know Bozeman's like kind of banged up, but they paid Bozeman a lot of money, and then Pat Elflein ended up the week 1 starter. A situation I feel like is still developing, but the fact that Pat Elflein is playing his best football of his career at least kind of makes them look right for that decision. And then Austin Corbett at right guard. We've had some free agent guards that we've talked about in this video here that did not work out. So far, Austin Corbett has been plug and play and playing his best football on the interior. So the interior pass protection's been pretty damn good. It's actually been the tackles that have had some hiccups, but as of late, I feel like it's getting a little bit better there. Didn't feel like lowering those tackles here this week. But onto the defensive side of the ball, they're not free of blame either there. The offense has been the ugly part, but there's a couple guys going down here, and also some young players going up too. But, Yetur Gross-Matos, there was expectations that he could step in as this team's number 2 edge opposite of Brian Burns. And another young player with a lot of tools that I just would speculate that he doesn't have the work behavior to become a great player. Was a second-round pick and hasn't shown a lick of development since he came into the league, and it was supposed to be this year, and it just hasn't been there. So you really haven't been able to find Yetur Gross-Matos out there. He's going to come down pretty hard, 73 to a 70. And Jeremy Chin just has had some rough goes of it in coverage. The run support hasn't been as good. I think just a little step back for Jeremy Chin in what is otherwise going to be a great career for him. But the play has not been great from him. But a couple of first-rounders are playing well as well, so not all bad. Derek Brown is started to defend the run. Something he hasn't always done is hold that gap and play the run with discipline. So it's good to see that. That's something that was definitely the bill on him coming out, but so far in his NFL career, he has not been a big impact run defender. And then J.C. Horn, getting him back healthy. They did draft him over Patrick Surtain, and I've kind of talked some smack about how good Surtain was and maybe how the Panthers should have drafted Surtain, and that certainly feels like that is true, but J.C. Horn's only 5 games into his career, and he looks pretty fucking good too. So, let's not take too many victory laps on that, because he's been breaking balls up and has been a nice influx of talent to that secondary. And then Eddie Pinheiro, they pick him up, the kicker. He was the double doink guy, right? And he's having a good year so far, so good for Pinheiro. Next up, the New England Patriots. Not quite as many for this team. It's been kind of a lackluster season for the Patriots, but star of the month, believe it or not, it's another cornerback, Jack Jones. I thought about Michael Onwenu as well, who's been sweet at right guard, but Jack Jones has been a really fun story, and I wanted to highlight him because I didn't think this was a good pick. I just thought he was a super low upside corner. I never saw him as a guy that could show starting caliber cornerback play, a guy that was a 24-year-old rookie and just not a high-end like athlete guy. And maybe he will never be a superstar, but clearly a very heady player that Bill Belichick did his homework and found a guy that can step in right away and handle his defense, and that is Jack Jones. He gets a pick six on Aaron Rodgers. He's been good beyond that play as well. So they seem to have found a starter in Jack Jones in the 4th round, which is about the only good thing you can say about the addition of talent for this team for this year. Ramondre Stevenson continues to look the part as a big, bruising, athletic back. Him and Davian Harris is a handful. Hunter Henry's going to go down 1. He's been nowhere to be found in this passing game, not living up to that 83 rating. Michael Onwenu, on the other hand, sliding back into guard. He's played some tackle in his career. He's having the best year of his career, man. And I wondered maybe how he was going to handle more of a wide zone blocking system. Well, Michael Onwenu, Robert Hunt, we had similar questions about those guys. Going from power blocking schemes to these wide zone blocking schemes. And both guys have been great. Both guys kind of those mauling guard types. But yeah, Onwenu is low-key one of the best guards in the NFL at this point. He's still young and increasing that sample size. But by season's end, if he's like an all-pro type of guy at this point, not really going to bat an eye at that. Then Jonathan Jones has been really good for this defense. He's been making a lot of plays in zone that he hasn't necessarily always shown. They really were counting on Jonathan Jones with J.C. Jackson leaving to step up as this team's number 1 corner, and he has handled it very well. He's a player that has been a slot corner for the majority of his career. Not anymore. He's playing on the outside, and Bill Belichick has his trust, and Jonathan Jones is playing great. Jalen Mills, on the other hand, not so much. Looks slow. Looks kind of like the old Jalen Mills, Philadelphia Jalen Mills, if you will. He's been getting beat and is going to come down 1 here. And then Devin McCourty, simply put, just looks 35 years old, playing free safety. He's not making a lot of plays back there. And I just think he's going to have to kind of gradually come down, and definitely feels like his last year for his career here. Then the Las Vegas Raiders, another cornerback. I really did not realize how many corners I put in here when I did this, but just a good month for corners. I don't think you can really argue with it. Nate Hobbs for the Raiders is now playing outside corner after being basically like an all-rookie corner last year as a slot guy. And he's stepped outside and handled it all in the same. And he's kind of the full package. He's 6 foot. He's obviously physical. He can play in the slot. He has great zone IQ, but he has fluid hips to play man. They really found something in Nate Hobbs. They really, really did. And God, they needed a corner to surprise for this secondary. But then with the offense, Josh Jacobs going to go up 1. He's really just an underrated player, period. He is maybe the best jump cut in the NFL outside of Saquon Barkley. He's a full-sized back. He accelerates well. He's got good vision. He's good in the receiving game. I still can't believe they declined his 5th-year option, because he's going to get paid by somebody here this offseason. Kind of single-handedly beat the Broncos with his performance last week. Mac Hollins going to go up 3, making plays, that big-bodied guy for Derek Carr. He's always enjoyed having a 6'4" target to just chuck the ball up to on 3rd down. That's basically what Mac Hollins has been. He's been coming down with some of those balls, and he has been a very pleasant surprise as a perimeter starter for the Raiders offense that got going a little bit better these last couple weeks. Darren Waller is going to come down. Just not living up to those high aspirations. 89 overall coming into the year. Honestly, like last year was a little bit disappointing. It's been a little bit more of the same. And he was a complete no-name breakout, right? He's a former receiver that had never really shown anything in the NFL. Someone with, had his own off-the-field issues that he overcame and was a great feel-good story. Had a couple years as in the tight end 1 conversation, but he really was an out-of-nowhere random breakout. And I do think there's something to be said about the fact that he doesn't have a complete game as a tight end. And a lot of his production was schemed up on really creative play calling by John Gruden. And right now we're not seeing that type of play calling from McDaniels. This is a very much like the timing routes within this offense and stuff just might not be something Darren Waller is really fit for. So, yeah, he's going to come down. Hopefully he can start to produce and start. I mean, he's got to start catching the football, too. He's had a lot of drops, too. So, yeah, Waller has just not lived up to the name that he built for himself, really. Foster Moreau is going to go up 1. He has possibly been the better tight end out of the 2. He's in a contract year, and I've always liked Foster Moreau. He's just always been behind Darren Waller here. A good athlete, decent blocker, and, yeah, he's stepping up. This offensive line has also been better than we definitely anticipated. I mean, Lester Cotton has stepped up and been okay at guard. Dylan Parham has been playing out there. Love Dylan Parham. Thought he was a steal when they got him. And he's been much better at guard than he has been at center, which is totally fine because Andre James continues to be the, one saving grace from the John Gruden regime as far as a general manager perspective goes. So you can have Parham at right guard. Cotton's been fine at the other guard spot. So that interior group, you're really not even worried about it right now. You do have a left tackle. And then at right tackle, Thayer Munford's been fine. That's the one spot you're definitely concerned about. He's just a limited player. He's not a good athlete, but he has been fine at right tackle. So he's going to come up. And then over to the defensive side of the ball, just some front seven guys have been really disappointing. It's a familiar sight for the Raiders, but Bilal Nichols, a free agent signing, hasn't really fit well within this defense and just not doing much for them. So he's going to come down. Jonathan Hankins, having a hard time getting off blocks, getting defensive stops. Hasn't been the run defender that he was many years ago. Chandler Jones also going to come down. This is kind of looking like an L for the Raiders. They trade Yannick to go get Rock Ya-Sin, who's just been fine for them. Not good, not great. But then they bring in Chandler Jones, who has really been a non-factor for them. I mean, Jones, the writing was on the wall last year. He had that huge week 1 performance and then got hurt and then just was kind of mid all year. The guy's 32 years old. He's never been a great athlete. So if he's an average athlete that's losing another half a step, at one point, does he just not have the tools to beat rushers one-on-one? And we might be at that point. And they gave him a pretty nice contract to come out here. So I'm certainly worried. Chandler Jones has an opportunity to turn the season around. It's still early, but it's not off to a good start with Chandler Jones. And then Amik Robertson has gotten some opportunities to come in and show off his skills, and he's been all right. He's still young and an interesting player. We'll monitor him as the year goes on. And with Nate Hobbs stepping outside, Robertson has gotten a clearer path to play slot where he probably needs to be as a shorter guy, although that's not always true to typecast those shorter guys. All right, let's move on to the Rams. A lot of names here, so let's get into it. Really struggled with a star of the week for the Rams here. I ended up going Cooper Kupp just because you can't think about the Rams' first 4 weeks here, which has been pretty rough on offense and not great on defense. You can't think about their success without thinking about Cooper Kupp, and he is going to come up 1. And this is, I mentioned in the intro, there's like 99.9% the Madden rating will apply to my thoughts on the guy in real life. If I could go higher on Cooper Kupp, I would, but because they have a formula, I can't give him great speed. I can't give him great deep route running or release. He has specific limitations in his game, so the Madden rating can only go so high. But, man, Cooper Kupp is the best receiver in football right now. I guess Tyreek Hill keeps creeping into my mind with that, but he is been lights out this year and probably going to win Offensive Player of the Year and the receiving title again. Unlike Allen Robinson, who looks like a horrible signing, it was kind of a weird just group of transactions that they made. They trade Robert Woods for a bag of Doritos, and then when they miss out on giving Von Miller about $15 million a year, they kind of panic and just give the money to Allen Robinson and didn't really think things through. because Robert Woods is a better player than Allen Robinson. And that's showing here. Allen Robinson isn't handling this offense very well. So maybe they can get him going, but it has been a blatant disappointment with Allen Robinson. Let's talk about Ben Skowronek. He's going to move from a 65 overall receiver to a 72 overall tight end. I know he doesn't play tight end, but I was just thinking about him, and the way they use him is basically as a wing tight end, and now they're playing him at fullback. So this is another Madden thing here, where now you can play him at receiver, you can play him at tight end, you can play him at fullback. Whatever you want to do with Ben Skowronek, go for it. He's been a interesting little chess piece for them, and he's more of a scheme, like he allows them to run a scheme that opens things up for other players. It's not really anything Ben Skowronek truly does, but he's big and tough and a hybrid player that's been kind of fun to watch this year. The offensive line has obviously been a nightmare, but the center, Coleman Shelton, who was a big question coming into the year, has actually held up all right. He was actually supposed to be their right guard, but he's gotten a lot of time at center because Brian Allen hasn't been able to stay healthy. So you think at some point Shelton's going to go back over to right guard, and he definitely looks okay. They were right in thinking that they have something there. It was suspect that they trusted him as a starter going into the season, and you can kind of see why. He's held up pretty well in pass protection. He's a good athlete for their wide zone blocking scheme. Alaric Jackson as well has stepped in and played okay at guard. Not great, but okay. An interesting, highly recruited guy going to Iowa who has just kind of been a disappointment. Was once upon a time mocked as a first-round tackle out of Iowa and entirely didn't live up to those expectations, but he has been getting some good coaching from the Rams and been okay there. But a lot of other problems with this O-line. Bobby Evans, most notably, has had to start at guard, and he's just been a turnstile. I mean, that Rams game, literally, he might as well not have been out there. So, yeah, he is coming down pretty hard, down to a 62. Rob Havenstein has had some hiccups as well, so he's going to come down 82 to an 81. Obviously, the Rams have some issues on that offensive line, to say the least. Then on defense, unfortunately, a lot of these depth pieces are not really stepping up for the Rams. So two of these, not even depth, but two starting defensive tackles, Greg Gaines, A'Shawn Robinson, have been a step down from what they were last year. Robinson's been okay against the run, but cannot get after the quarterback at all. And Greg Gaines, inversely, has really struggled against the run. Both guys were pretty solid at both aspects last year. So both guys going to come down 1. Certainly capable of turning their seasons around, though. Good players. Leonard Floyd's going to come down 1 as well. Definitely looks like a guy that is going from being a third piece to a number 2 piece. And he is not a number 2 piece. He should be a third piece. Just not really a one-on-one winner in a lot of ways. So the scheme and the Donald effect, the Von Miller effect, clearly big for his big season last year and hasn't been much of a factor this year. Neither has Justin Hollins, who is kind of a nice rotational starter piece, hybrid edge type, and has not been making an impact out there, getting lost in the run, not getting after the quarterback. So just some troubles with their front seven. And then linebacker Ernest Jones looks really good dissecting the run this year. Clearly did his homework over the summer, and he looks fast. And I also think having a mentor like Bobby Wagner has been big for him. So he looks good. Darian Kendrick's going to get a little bit of love. He's just a very pro-ready corner. He's played a million snaps in high-pressure situations going back to his time in college. So he plays with that confidence out there. And in a zone-heavy system, it makes sense why he can just kind of exist and not be a huge problem. He has had some losses, don't get me wrong, but he's just kind of a nice, safe pick for them to have added, because when they get some injuries, you can plug him in there and not worry about him being terrible. And I feel that way about Darian Kendrick. Taylor Rapp is going to come down. Just hasn't really been making anything happen in coverage. And they flirted with the idea of putting him on the bench in the preseason, but they don't have a lot of great other options either. So they're kind of stuck with him. He was a guy that fell a little bit because of a lack of high-end explosiveness, and I think it's showing in coverage a little bit more this year. And then their punter, Riley Dixon, is going to come up 4, grading out well in the punter metrics. Okay, then we got the Baltimore Ravens. Star of the month is going to be Lamar Snackson, putting on weight this year, and I do think it's adding to a more sustainable play style for Lamar. I think he just is able to play more comfortably from the pocket, just for whatever reason. I think he's just more comfortable when he's bigger. I think it just kind of makes logistic sense that you're more comfortable hanging in tough in the pocket when you feel like you can take a hit. And yeah, I don't know. It's more of a feel thing there, I guess. There's no evidence that that's why, but it's just kind of I guess a theory of mine. But yeah, he's passing better. He's reading the field really well. He's made a couple mistakes, but I think this is a very sustainable, high-end, MVP caliber version of Lamar Jackson that we're getting. He's leading one of the best offenses in the NFL. He's had some crazy moments. He's made some beautiful throws. He's elevating guys like Bateman and Devin Duvernay, so you love to see it. Lamar's going up +2, their star of the month. Justice Hill's going to get a +1 just for the mere fact that we got to see him play. I feel like he got about 10 snaps before he got hurt again, and that doubled his career snap total. Really talented player coming out of Oklahoma State, but just has not been able to get on the football field. So you definitely saw the juice, and then he got hurt, but good to know it's in there, I guess. Both these receivers are going to go up. They've been a big storyline for this Ravens team. Rashad Bateman has had some high-end explosive plays, but the down-to-down consistency actually hasn't been super great, but the high-end stuff has been so good that I still think he's earned a slight boost here for the first month of the season. Devin Duvernay has earned more than a slight boost. This has been one of my guys for a while. Been waiting for him to get an opportunity. They've kind of stubbornly not utilized him correctly until now. But it's not just them using him in the easy manufactured offense stuff or using him as a slot receiver, because he's been able to do that, and he's been just fine at it this year. But he's even contributing as a vertical ball winner and scoring touchdowns, and he's just been super explosive. It's selfishly, I'm very happy to know that I wasn't crazy for putting a first to a second round grade on Devin Duvernay, because he can absolutely play, and he could at Texas. Then we've got Ben Powers on the offensive line. Been a good player for a while now, and his pass protection's just getting better seemingly every time he gets a start. So I think he's locked up that left guard spot, even if he's really struggling in the run game. But yeah, there was at one point a competition between him and Ben Cleveland. I think he's put that to bed, and Cleveland might have to set his sights on overtaking Kevin Zeitler someday, because Powers feels pretty damn solid there at left guard. Then a couple guys in this interior defensive line, Justin Madubuike, who burst out the gate with some big games, week 1, week 2, so going to get some love here. Madubuike, a high upside, athletic defensive tackle, seems to have started to reach his upside here after an up and down start to his career. But I mean, you can't flip on the Ravens in the first 2 weeks of the season without stopping and saying, wow, Justin Madubuike looks incredible. Slowed down a little bit after that, so he's got to keep it up. But yeah, he's a sweet player. Excited to see his development maybe continue here. Broderick Washington's been a fine rotational run defender. It's kind of what they drafted him to do, and he's living up to what they're asking of him. And then Patrick Queen, I mean, he's like dud of the year so far. Former first-round pick that you could make a case is the worst starting linebacker in the NFL right now. It's hard to watch, dude. He doesn't do anything well. He's not even making the easy plays. Like, he's not getting after the quarterback when they blitz him. He is missing wide-open tackles. He's dropping interceptions that fall right in his lap. So he's whiffing on the stuff that he's supposed to make as this kind of boom or bust linebacker. There's no boom, and it's all bust. I really think they need to bench him. He's actually going to be rated lower than the Ohio State Malik Harrison. Like, at least maybe see what Harrison can do. Maybe Harrison isn't healthy, but it's been a nightmare for Patrick Queen, and you can make a case that he's cost them at least one game, if not two. Was horrible in that Dolphins game and was atrocious against the Bills. Josh Allen was just playing with Patrick Queen, so he's coming down pretty harshly here, down to a 67. It's been that bad. Then we got the New Orleans Saints. Star of the month is going to be Chris Olave. I mean, he's balling out. Does he have 2 games over 150 yards now? I think he does. He has been able to win on all 3 levels. And as much as I loved Chris Olave, I even doubted if he could be like a true number 1. But, man, with the way he's playing, sky's the limit for Chris Olave. He looks awesome. They gave up a lot to get him. He had to be this good, and he is living up to the price that they paid to go get Chris Olave. The gap between these quarterbacks is going to be narrowing a little bit here. Jameis Winston's going to get a -2. He really has struggled. He's not playing in structure very well. He's making some of those Jameis Winston mistakes. So rightfully so, I think he's coming down. And then Andy Dalton was really sound against the Vikings. And I've talked about this before, but with these playmakers, with the defense that you expect to be pretty damn good, I think you can make a pretty easy case that this team would be better off with Andy Dalton. And we'll see what decision they end up making, but it'll be fascinating to see play out regardless. Juwan Johnson's been another one of those nice playmakers. Came into the league as a receiver, but he has really taken the tight end transition to heart. Feel like he's getting a little bit stronger, a little bit better at blocking every year, and you can still see some of those receiver skill sets show up when they throw him the football. Good body control and decent route running, so he's a nice piece. And then James Hurst, this is fascinating. He was not supposed to start, and honestly, I'm surprised that they retained him. I thought after another good year for James Hurst last year, somebody would put a little faith in the PFF grades, because he has honestly been a borderline top, let's just go top 16. Like, he has been a top 16 pass protecting left tackle for a while now. He's a 31-year-old kind of journeyman veteran type, but he has been really nice for the Saints. And with Armstead's injury record in the past, he has been such a reliable piece for them. And they were able to get him back for nothing, which was really surprising. I thought almost assuredly a team like the Chargers or the Bears or somebody that needed a starting caliber tackle would take a look at James Hurst and give him a go. He wasn't really supposed to be back here for the Saints at all, let alone back under contract. And then after they give up a future first-round pick to go get Trevor Penning in this year's draft class, he wasn't supposed to start at left tackle. Well, Trevor Penning gets hurt, and James Hurst continues to play remarkable football at left tackle. He's just been locked down in pass protection. Totally neutered that Vikings edge duo last week. So, yeah, I don't know how you go back to Trevor Penning. Maybe you put Penning at guard or something, but I don't know how you go back to Trevor Penning this year with James Hurst playing like this. Maybe you trade James Hurst, I don't know, but he's a good player. Then on defense, David Onyemata is having a really rough year. He's not getting after the quarterback. He is not getting off anything in the run game. So he's a good player, but really rough start to his season. Head-scratching start, even. And then Cam Jordan, I think we're just getting a little bit of age regression here. You still see the flashes, but the down-to-down consistency wasn't even all that great last year, but it's been even a step lower on a pressure rate standpoint. So he's going to come down. Still good to see he's got it, though. He had a really pretty good game against the Vikes. So might have been a -2 if it weren't for what he did against Minnesota and a good right tackle in Brian O'Neill. And then Will Lutz has missed some kicks. He's going to come down 1. Not so much the dinging him for the 60-yarder, but a couple other ones he's missed. All right, the Seattle Seahawks. Bet you guessed this one, star of the month, Geno Smith. Although Tariq Woolen's a really fun candidate for that as well. But yeah, Geno is so fascinating to me because came into the league as a spread quarterback that at that time, that was a huge knock. And a lot more old school head coaches, would have been Rex Ryan at the time, just, not being innovative with their offenses. And you saw a transition a passing of the guard to allow a lot of these spread offenses into the NFL from a schematic point of view around 2015, 16, 17, basically right after Geno Smith got benched. So he comes into the league, falls a little bit because of the spread offense criticisms, but was a really productive and incredible college quarterback that maybe could have been a first-round pick, right? So a tough entry to the league, needless to say. But the talent's clearly there. He's athletic. He's got a strong arm. He's accurate. A lot to like with Geno Smith. And then ends up as a backup for 6 years. Nobody really gives him an opportunity. Nobody takes him seriously. And then here in Seattle, gets the opportunity behind Russell Wilson. Looks pretty good. And then doubles down this year. Beats Drew Lock out for the job. And he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL through this month. He really has. He's been efficient. He's been accurate. He's been pushing the ball downfield under pressure, navigating pockets, showing good pocket presence. He's playing well within the structure of the offense. It's really all been there for Geno Smith. And at this point, it's just a matter of sustainability. Does he keep playing like this? And if he does, we are going to get into some very interesting conversations about who Geno Smith is as a quarterback and what the Seahawks should do with his contract. But for now, let's just celebrate how good he's playing and enjoy it moving forward. Now, he's got a great surrounding core around him. That's another part of this conversation. They've got a run game with Rashad Penny playing with his hair on fire, playing like he needs to defend his job, which he does with Kenneth Walker coming in here. But Penny, a first-round pick in his own right, a speed-trained runner that continues to make the first man miss. And when he does that, he's got the explosiveness to have some of those chunk home run runs. So Rashad Penny's been, if you just take these 4 weeks and the last 2 months of last season, he's been one of the best backs in football, showing why he was a first-round pick, staying healthy too. Then we got Will Dissly, made a really nice back shoulder touchdown catch against Detroit. That's the main reason he's going up, just showing a little bit of added receiving prowess that I didn't know was in there. Nice player, limited upside, but nice catch. Colby Parkinson, someone I've talked about on the Fully Inflated Football podcast, but interesting player. He is 6'7", basically played slot receiver for Stanford. Not much of a blocking tight end, but a very smooth receiver for a 6'7" guy. And he seems to have beefed up a little bit, really just looks the part. He's their third tight end, so he's not getting a ton of opportunities. And I'd love to see a tight end needy team maybe go free Colby Parkinson a little bit. But I've always just liked the film on him. Seems like a reliable, smart, big-bodied receiver that isn't a joke blocking from the slot or from the wing. So I'm just very fascinated in Colby Parkinson, and I think this is just the beginning. Gabe Jackson's going to come down one. Just hasn't been great, getting up there in age. But Abraham Lucas is going to go up two. Has just been kind of a plug-and-play tackle. He hasn't been incredible, but he's been very good. It was a good third-round pick, and him and Charles Cross have been a really nice rookie tackle duo. And Abraham Lucas has also come in and shown that he can, in fact, run block after playing in a system at Washington State that literally just did not ask him to move forward at all. But a classic example and reminder of why you got to ask, is it something a prospect can't do or something a prospect didn't do? And they just didn't ask him to run block. Probably should have been drafted a little bit higher than he was, to be honest. Some silly criticisms there. But over to the defense, Uchenna Nwosu's been a really nice pickup. Just a true jack of all trades, master of none, edge player. Can drop into coverage, defend the run, pretty good pass rusher. Yeah, just an all-around player at a position that they desperately needed. Good pickup in Uchenna Nwosu. And then these corners, Tariq Woolen, definitely a star of the month candidate. We could have kept the cornerback theme going, but Geno earned it. Tariq Woolen was supposed to be raw, in my opinion. Someone that recently converted from playing receiver. But he's a fast learner, I'll say that, because I didn't think his tape was this good coming out. And I thought he was a lot more stiff on tape, but he's just playing with that confidence. He's making plays on the football, and it allows him to have some poise in phase. Week one, we see him coming out and grabbing when they're targeting him. A couple of penalties that held him back a little bit, but man, he just looks the part as a 6'4" corner with crazy speed. He's a unique specimen that is clearly getting good coaching here in Seattle, that has had success working with this archetype. So it's a good fit, but you got to credit him as well, because I think he's doing he's putting his time in to improve his technique and earn this job as a day 3 rookie. It's just impressive what he's doing there. I can't wait to watch the rest of his season. One of the more fun rookies for sure. Even though I was a little bit lower on him as a prospect, I'll gladly hold my hand up and say I should have had him higher, because he's been sweet. Michael Jackson Sr. is starting at the other cornerback spot. I mean, fine, he's a big body guy. They like his physicality, but he's been far from good in coverage. But we'll give him a little bit of respect here with a +3 coming up from 65. Sidney Jones is going to come down, however, a -2 for Sidney, losing out on the starting job. He ends up having to step in when they have an injury there and gets lost immediately. They haven't really gave up a big catch in zone where he was just staring at the receiver come open right in front of his face. So, he's going to come down to I guess, journeyman corner at this point. And then Michael Dixon not living up to that 82 grade as the punter there. All right, next we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their star of the month is going to be Minkah Fitzpatrick, living up to that payday, looking like one of the best free safeties in the NFL. What has he got? 3 picks this year. He's been flying all over the field. He looks great. Pretty simple pick there. Going to give Mitch Trubisky a +1 on his way out here. I didn't think he looked terrible. Made some nice throws. Just wanted to give him a little bit of respect because he played a little bit better than he has in years past. I still think it was the right decision to move on, but yeah, he wasn't horrible. Jaylen Warren, an undrafted rookie running back, has looked pretty good, stepping in behind some horrible run blocking and made the most of it. Chase Claypool going to come down 1. I mean, at some point you just got to start making plays, Chase Claypool. Kenny Pickett gave him a chance against the Jets, and he ends up basically getting bodied. Ball gets intercepted. He gets dinged for that one and just hasn't really been a factor for the Steelers since his rookie season. So at some point he's got to start playing good football there. Really, the offensive line has not been bad here. All these guys are going to go up from left tackle to right guard. Dan Moore in year 2 continues to improve in pass protection. Kevin Dotson remains solid. He's going to go up 1. Mason Cole's been a pleasant surprise in pass protection for them. And James Daniels, really nice signing, coming over from Chicago. Not a big surprise that Pittsburgh gets their hands on him, a really talented dude. That was a high second-round pick. Ends up getting a decent contract here, and he's living up to it, getting the right coaching. And, yeah, I mean, they needed an influx of talent on that O-line, and I'm glad James Daniels is giving them something there. So it's not all doom and gloom for the offense for Pickett as he steps in moving forward. For the defense, some good, some bad. Tyson Alualu, I think, 35 years old, coming off a serious injury. He is not grading out well against the run, and it does feel like it's probably the beginning of the end here for Alualu. Alex Highsmith, on the other hand, has been super impressive. I mean, does he not just feel like baby TJ Watt when he's out there? Clearly, he has taken to his counterpart there. Just a lot of the ways he wins feel very similar with that spin move and the bend around the edge that TJ Watt wins with. He's also doing what TJ Watt does, making an impact with splash plays against the run, dropping into coverage, just a super well-versed edge, hybrid backer, a little bit of a do-it-all edge piece that has really stepped up and kept this pass rush afloat without TJ Watt. Jameer Jones has earned some opportunities with those injuries on the edge and played a decent early down role as a run defender. Not a whole lot there, but worth noting. Akella Witherspoon is going to come down 1. I had some expectations that he could maybe take a step up this year. It's been the opposite. Was pretty good in his opportunities last year for Pittsburgh, but he's been a journeyman for a reason. He's just been an inconsistent cover player, and you're getting some of those low-end games from Witherspoon getting beat in coverage out there. However, Cameron Sutton was a breakout candidate for me, getting to mostly play back in the slot this year, although stepped outside at a nice interception, a nice aware play, playing perimeter corner against Zach Wilson, where he peeled off of his man for an interception. And he to me is one of the headiest corners in the league. It's what makes him so special from the slot. But it helps him survive on the outside when they ask him to do it. So I'm just a big fan of Cam Sutton. He's a third-round pick with a lot of quick twitch athleticism and obviously a high IQ player. And he just is a player you need to be aware of. Whether you're quarterback playing against them, you got to know where he is because he's a threat to peel off of his assignment at any point and bait you. But also just as a fan, good player. Presley Harvin in year 2, the punter, is going to go up +4. 69 to a 73 to round out this Steelers breakdown. All right, 3 teams left. The Houston Texans, a measly list for the Texans here. I promise you it isn't for a lack of watching. They just honestly are playing a lot of veteran players that have played like we know about them. Just not a lot of movement here. But Dameon Pierce is going to be the star of the month, and it's really just for his week 4 performance alone. But he's an exciting rookie. He was my pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I don't know if we're going to get that or not, but he's definitely producing and looks the part and an explosive back. So +2 for him, 72 to a 74. Titus Howard's playing well at right tackle as well. That's good to see. You know, they ended up not drafting a tackle. They go with the Derek Stingley route. A lot of people, myself included, were mocking them, someone like Evan Neal or Ikem Ekwonu. And they stand by Titus Howard, and he's making them look right so far. He's been very solid at right tackle, a former first-round pick, so he's fighting for a contract extension, and I think he might get it with how he's looked so far. We are going to drop Jonathan Grenard, breakout player last year, but it was only about half the season on about 28 pressures where he broke out. So it was a small sample size, and a little bit worried that was jumping to some conclusions too quickly because, you know, 4th-round pick, not incredible athletic tools from Grenard, and has had a harder time getting after the quarterback this year. So I still like his skill set, but yeah, he's going to come down 2 here this month. Jonathan Owens at safety is going to go up +3, up to a 70. They like him at safety. He's an athlete. He's a hard worker. And I don't know if he's a long-term answer or anything, but he has definitely played well on the back end there next to Jalen Petrie. All right, the Tennessee Titans, their star of the month is going to be Jeffrey Simmons, who is, I guess, having his big breakout season in a lot of ways. He's just been getting after the quarterback at a really high clip. It's that simple. Just so explosive, so athletic. He's got enough pass rush moves to get after it. So he's been keeping that defense, that pass rush alive up front after Harold Landry went down for the season, and they haven't had Bud Dupree, but Jeffrey Simmons has frankly been enough for this defense these last couple of weeks. But back to the offense, you got Austin Hooper is going to come down. The Browns end up releasing him, and for good reason. He's just not an explosive player, and he's not a good blocker. So I never understood why the Browns paid him that much in the first place. He was fine for the Browns. He's been even worse for the Titans. Just hasn't been able to get comfortable here with Ryan Tannehill. He's got a fine pair of hands, and that's about it. Kind of reminds me of late career Kyle Rudolph in a lot of ways with Austin Hooper. Then Jeff Swaim is frankly outplaying Austin Hooper. He's been a better blocker, and that's about all you can say about Jeff Swaim. He's fine. But Chig Okonkwo, when you look at the bundle of mediocrity there with Hooper and Swaim, it's hard not to get optimistic about Chig Okonkwo. They really get him going here week 4, winning in a variety of different ways, lining up as a running back on one play, winning in the passing game on that play, lining up as a slot receiver, beating Darius Leonard on a whip route for a touchdown. He can really do a variety of things. My pro comp for him was the love child of Jonnu Smith and Kyle Juszczyk, and so far that's looking like a good comp. I really think they will continue to use him creatively, and he will continue to shine. He's a really fun player. and a perfect scheme fit. Then Dylan Radins is going to come down. What the hell, man? He was a second-round pick last year, and they don't want anything to do with him. I mean, Taylor Lewan gets hurt at left tackle, and they don't go to Dylan Radins. They go to Nicholas Petit Frere is playing at right tackle. Who is it they're starting at left tackle instead? It's not a chump. Oh, it is a chump. Dennis Daly is starting at left tackle ahead of Dylan Radins. Like, my God, is he that bad? I guess so. I kind of liked his tape out of North Dakota State, but maybe it's a work ethic thing. I really am not sure, but he has got to come down until he can beat out frickin' Dennis Daly for a left tackle spot, let alone play well. Then Nate Davis at right guard is settling in at pass pro. Got to commend his development there. That was him coming into the year was he was just horrible in his pass protection technique, but it's just so much better now, straight up, and he's protecting Tannehill from the inside much better. Then on the defense, Tyre Tart continues to make plays as a rusher, as a run defender, you name it. It's just a fun rotational player that they found out of nowhere. Rashad Weaver has kind of lost some weight. He was 272 at Pittsburgh and looked the part. Now he's down to 259 and looks more slim. And all of a sudden he's got bend. He's been their full-time starter on the edge, a third-round pick who didn't get on the field as a rookie, but I like Rashad Weaver. He's just a really physically minded dude with good technique, and he's had a nice year too here. Hasn't had the most, the highest pass rush win rate or anything like that, but I think he's just a sound player, if nothing else, and could continue to get better as the year goes on. Then at linebacker, Dylan Cole's going to get a +2 here. Just kind of good to see him still play. He used to be a really fun player for the Texans, but disappeared. Kind of lost those opportunities in a lot of ways. But he gets a chance to basically rotate as a starter with Zach Cunningham getting hurt recently, and gets his hand on a football, looks comfortable out there, defending the run okay. So I like Dylan Cole. We're going to boost him up here. And then these two young corners going to come down. I'm not so much worried about Christian Fulton. He's had a rough start. He needs to be dinged for it, but he'll be just fine. I think he's a good player. But Caleb Farley has been really ugly. He's had some horrible losses, just giving up big plays. The athleticism not really showing. His technique looks terrible. His confidence looks shot after the injury. I am very worried that Caleb Farley is some combination of damaged by his injury or just not good. I don't know, but he's got to come way down until he shows he can play here in year 2. All right, our last team, the Minnesota Vikings. Star of the month was a pretty easy decision. Christian Darrisaw. I like Elijah Vera Tucker for the Jets, but a lot of Jets fans were mad when I said that the Vikings will win this trade because they moved down with the Jets. And yeah, they ended up taking Wyatt Davis and Kellen Mond, who are no longer on the team. But even then, I said you're getting a better player at a more valuable position in Christian Darrisaw over Elijah Vera Tucker. And here in year 2, there's no way you take Vera Tucker over Darrisaw right now. And it's not a slight to Vera Tucker. He's a fine player. I liked Vera Tucker as a high floor guard, someone that could play tackle in a pinch. That's all been fine. But Christian Darrisaw has been balling out this year. He has really worked at his pass protection technique. You're seeing the run blocking there. Just a really high upside guy that looks like a franchise left tackle. Very similar to me to Andrew Thomas's career trajectory right now. So you got to love what you have there in Minnesota. I think that's the best thing they have going for them this season, at least the biggest surprise or just thing you're most excited about in general. So yeah, he's been sweet. Then Dalvin Cook's going to come down 1, just not making as many guys miss, not getting those explosive runs. Not that I'm worried about him, but not quite living up to that 93. KJ Osborne continues to make plays. A lot of it's just feels like busted coverages or soft zones where he's just running a route into a zone. I don't know. I feel like Vikings fans overrate Osborne a little bit. He's a good player, but I don't know. I'm never like overwhelmed by KJ Osborne out there. Feels like it's always against zone when he's having success. Anyway, Ben Ellefson's been getting out there. Whatever, mostly blocking for him. Made a nice catch a couple weeks ago. And then Ezra Cleveland at left guard. You know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, I guess. Darrisaw's been great, but Ezra Cleveland's been getting whooped in pass protection. You don't like to see that. You want to see him getting better out there, not worse. And then over to the defense, James Lynch has kind of stepped up as a run defender. Probably a guy that was always going to take some time, kind of similar to Zach Allen in a lot of ways, what we talked about. Not entirely the same, but James Lynch played a lot of edge, or at least kind of 4-tech in a weird Baylor defense. So it was always going to be a transition to the NFL where he was going to have to kind of beef up and be a full-time defensive tackle. And he seems to have done that. He's defending the run much better. He's a gifted player that is fascinating here into year 3. I'm interested to see what his season looks like in, I don't want to say make or break, but it's a big year for James Lynch to see if he could maybe be a starter or if he's just a rotational piece. Ross Blacklock, similarly, athletic guy who is going to take some time, and he's still taking time. That draft class had a lot of these guys that were just good athletes that were raw, and Blacklock maybe can get better coaching here in Minnesota, but ends up getting traded for nothing here to Minnesota and hasn't done a whole lot for them yet. I still believe in the upside there, but he's got to show it. So Blacklock's going to come down 1. And then Danielle Hunter's going to come down 2. I don't know if he's lost a step or what, but he has not been producing like Danielle Hunter, like the Danielle Hunter we're used to. He has not been bad, but rated at an 88. That says one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Didn't play last year, and now has been just a good pass rusher, not a great one. Time for him to come down until proven otherwise. Jordan Hicks, this signing hasn't really worked out. He's been really getting lost over the middle of the field. The Vikings have given up a lot of completions in these zone coverages over the middle, and a lot of times you can point to Jordan Hicks and say that was his assignment. He didn't close that space quick enough. So, yeah, that's been disappointing. I wouldn't mind seeing the Oklahoma kid get out there at linebacker and just see if he can be any better. And then Cam Dantzler, to wrap this thing up on a positive note, he's just good. We don't really know how fast he is because one of his 40s was like a 4.35 and one of them was like a 4.7. I think he's somewhere in the middle there, but he's lengthy, he's tough, he's got good technique, he's comfortable in this zone-heavy system, and it definitely had a good game against the Saints and has been good all year. I think he's probably their best corner right now ahead of Patrick Peterson, so +2 for Cam Dantzler. And that is all she wrote. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you are still here, please do take a second to hit that like button. Fair to say you may have enjoyed the video. So let's set a goal. Let's try to get 4,000 likes. If you are a loyal viewer of the channel, please take a second to hit that like button before we get out of here. But that is all I've got for you. This will be back in a month to recap the second quarter of the NFL season, if you will. Also, drop your comments down below. What do you think? Do you think I missed any players? Definitely let me know. Check out TFG Plays, my second channel, for other Madden content coming at you soon. Beyond that, thank you for watching, and we'll see you later. Peace out.